It detects unusual activity and locks the device. Another great feature is offline lock. In the event thief is trying to turn off the connection, turn on the airplane mode, continues to use the device, the phone detects that it's unusual activity and unlocks the device. In the event the thief is trying to disconnect your phone, turn on airplane mode, phone detects that and also locks the device.
I asked phone companies last year to help stop phone theft, and I'm glad Google has answered with a new security update. I'll keep working with mobile phone companies and the Met to crack down on phone theft and build a safer London for all. Here are 5 ways we're making London greener in 30 seconds. The Beaver is back. We're reintroducing wildlife to London to help nature thrive. We've planted over 500,000 trees since 2016. Our buses are getting greener. We now have over 1,000 zero-emission buses. We're pushing water companies to clean up our rivers and stop sewage from flowing into the Thames. We've helped cut air pollution by nearly a half in central London and are working on making sure every family can breathe cleaner air. Together, we're making London greener for everyone.
Everybody loves a great night out. It's good for the soul. I'm Marina Ahmad. I'm the chair of the London Assembly Economy, Culture and Skills Committee. We've been investigating London's nightlife and have produced a cross-party report, having spoken to many experts.
We think the £1 levy is a really effective and simple way for industry to invest in the research and development of this talent pipeline and reinvest that money into the rapidly using.
We're asking the Mayor, his Nightlife Task Force and the government to act on our recommendations and make London a truly 24-hour city. You can read our report on the London Assembly website.
I was born and raised in Tooting. It's where I've lived my entire life and where I've raised my own family. But right now, if you were to buy a modest 3-bed home in Tooting, you wouldn't see much change for £1 million. How is someone from a working class background in Tooting today, with no financial support from their family, supposed to raise a 100 grand deposit, let alone secure a £900,000 mortgage? The average price of a house in London is now almost 14 times the typical household income, 14 times. So anyone claiming the solution lies in cutting back on flat whites or Netflix needs to have a serious reality check. This crisis was decades in the making. It can't be solved through one policy, one budget, or even one government term. It will take time. But know that brick by brick, we can and we will solve it, because your future and the future of London rests on it.
Hi, I'm Krupesh Irani, Chair of the Health Committee at the London Assembly, and today the committee is here at Liverpool Street Station with the London Ambulance Service to learn more about CPR and defibrillators and how anyone can use one to save a life.
At the moment, less than 1 in 10 people survive a cardiac arrest in this country, which is a poor statistic we need to increase. We know that if we can get hands on chest and early defibrillation within the first 3 to 5 minutes of cardiac arrest, it will double that person's chance of survival. That's why we need the public help.
There are 500 defibrillators across TfL stations in London, and using one can save someone's life.
The streets can be a cruel place when you're homeless. The biting cold, abuse from strangers, not knowing where you'll sleep, what you'll eat, or how you'll wash. But that's why hubs like this are so important. This is one of the services we fund to get people into the warm where they're safe. In London, we've delivered record funding to homelessness charities and service providers. We've also significantly increased City Hall's rough sleeping budget to help more Londoners who are struggling. Our 2024-2025 budget is more than 4 times the budget when I took office in 2016. We've helped around 17,600 people off the streets since then, and thanks to the hard work of so many people, 75% have stayed off the streets for good. More funding from the government is hugely welcomed and will make a huge difference as we approach Christmas and the coldest winter months. Absolutely no one should be sleeping rough in our city. Let's end it for good.
And then when I do, you get all emotional. Why is it a red flag?
Learning about equality, respect and kindness is one of life's most important lessons, and it's never too early to start developing these skills. We're funding a new innovative toolkit and workshops in primary schools to educate London's children about healthy, respectful relationships.
Will you learn what makes you a bit...
So today I've learned that how to spot healthy friendships and red flags in friendships, and how to be positive and not to pressure any of your friends to do something that they don't want to do, or that's going to be a red flag and negativity in a friendship.
We also, in class, we have made a little house of friendship. We draw a house, then we write what's wrong for the house and what's good for the house. Like, we should be honest to the house, we should be loyal, we shouldn't be gossiping about it.
A healthy relationship is friends that are loyal.
I've written to all primary school head teachers in the capital to outline City Hall's funding of this programme. It'll give teachers the expert training they need to empower the next generation of Londoners to stand up to sexism and misogyny in all its forms.
I would say a healthy relationship would be to, be positive, be kind, be honest, and speak truthfully, and be resilient.
I'll do everything in my power to create a safer and fairer London for everyone. More than 100,000 young Londoners now have access to great mentors.
Just to know that no matter what happens, you're going to have someone
That's a really, really important thing to me about having people there for me.
Too many young people in London face barriers to achieving their potential. One-to-one mentoring can be their turning point, helping them avoid negative pathways and create a brighter future.
We know we can't arrest our way out of youth violence. What we can do is invest early before struggles become problems.
I'm committed to working with schools, community groups, local authorities and other partners to ensure young Londoners get the support they need to reach their full potential. Okay Google, what are you doing to help combat phone theft?
We just rolled out theft protection features. One of the features is theft detection lock, which uses powerful AI technology to detect when your phone is snatched out of your hands and somebody is trying to run. It detects unusual activity and locks the device. Another great feature is offline lock. In the event thief is trying to turn off the connection, turn on the airplane mode, continues to use the device, the phone detects that it's unusual activity and it locks the device. In the event the thief is trying to disconnect your phone, turn on airplane mode, phone detects that and also locks the device.
I asked phone companies last year to help stop phone theft, and I'm glad Google has answered with a new security update. I'll keep working with mobile phone companies and the Met to crack down on phone theft and build a safer London for all. Here are 5 ways we're making London greener in 30 seconds. The Beaver is back. We're reintroducing wildlife to London to help nature thrive. We've planted over 500,000 trees since 2016. Our buses are getting greener. We now have over 1,000 zero-emission buses. We're pushing water companies to clean up our rivers and stop sewage from flowing into the Thames. We've helped cut air pollution by nearly a half in central London and are working on making sure every family can breathe cleaner air. Together, we're making London greener for everyone.
Everybody loves a great night out. It's good for the soul. I'm Marina Ahmad. I'm the chair of the London Assembly Economy, Culture and Skills Committee. We've been investigating London's nightlife and have produced a cross-party report, having spoken to many experts.
We think the £1 levy is a really effective and simple way for industry to invest in the research and development of this talent pipeline and reinvest that money into the grassroots community.
We're asking the Mayor, his Nightlife Task Force and the government to act on our recommendations and make London a truly 24-hour city. You can read our report on the London Assembly website.
I was born and raised in Tooting. It's where I've lived my entire life and where I've raised my own family. But right now, if you were to buy a modest 3-bed home in Tooting, you wouldn't see much change for £1 million. How is someone from a working class background in Tooting today, with no financial support from their family, supposed to raise a 100 grand deposit, let alone secure a £900,000 mortgage? The average price of a house in London is now almost 14 times the typical household income. 14 times. So anyone claiming the solution lies in cutting back on flat whites or Netflix needs to have a serious reality check. This crisis was decades in the making. It can't be solved through one policy, one budget, or even one government term. It will take time. But know that brick by brick, we can and we will solve it, because your future and the future of London rests on it.
Hi, I'm Krupesh Irani, Chair of the Health Committee at the London Assembly, and today the committee is here at Liverpool Street Station with the London Ambulance Service to learn more about CPR and defibrillators and how anyone can use one to save a life.
At the moment, less than 1 in 10 people survive a cardiac arrest in this country, which is a poor statistic we need to increase. We know that if we can get hands on chest and early defibrillation within the first 3 to 5 minutes of cardiac arrest, it will double that person's chance of survival. That's why we need the public help.
There are 500 defibrillators across TfL stations in London, and using one can save someone's life.
The streets can be a cruel place when you're homeless. The biting cold, abuse from strangers, not knowing where you'll sleep, what you'll eat, or how you'll wash. But that's why hubs like this are so important. This is one of the services we fund to get people into the warm where they're safe. In London, we've delivered record funding to homelessness charities and service providers. We've also significantly increased City Hall's rough sleeping budget to help more Londoners who are struggling. Our 2024-2025 budget is more than 4 times the budget when I took office in 2016. We've helped around 17,600 people off the streets since then, and thanks to the hard work of so many people, 75% have stayed off the streets for good. More funding from the government is hugely welcomed and will make a huge difference as we approach Christmas and the coldest winter months. Absolutely no one should be sleeping rough in our city. Let's end it for good.
And then when I do, you get all emotional. Why is it a red flag?
Learning about equality, respect and kindness is one of life's most important lessons, and it's never too early to start developing these skills. We're funding a new innovative toolkit and workshops in primary schools to educate London's children about healthy, respectful relationships.
Are you married? What? Me super bit.
So today I've learned that how to spot healthy friendships and red flags in friendships, and how to be positive and not to pressure any of your friends to do something that they don't want to do, or that's going to be a red flag and negativity in a friendship.
We also, in class, we have made a little house of friendship. We draw a house, then we write what's wrong for the house and what's good for the house. Like, we should be honest to the house, we should be loyal, we shouldn't be gossiping about it.
A healthy relationship is friends that are loyal.
I've written to all primary school head teachers in the capital to outline City Hall's funding of this programme. It'll give teachers the expert training they need to empower the next generation of Londoners to stand up to sexism and misogyny in all its forms.
I would say a healthy relationship would be to, be positive, be kind, be honest, and speak truthfully, and be resilient.
I'll do everything in my power to create a safer and fairer London for everyone. More than 100,000 young Londoners now have access to great mentors.
Just to know that no matter what happens, you're going to have someone. That's a really, really important thing to me about having people there for me.
Too many young people in London face barriers to achieving their potential. One-to-one mentoring can be their turning point, helping them avoid negative pathways and create a brighter future.
We know we can't arrest our way out of youth violence. What we can do is invest early before struggles become problems.
I'm committed to working with schools, community groups, local authorities and other partners to ensure young Londoners get the support they need to reach their full potential. Okay Google, what are you doing to help combat phone theft?
We just rolled out theft protection features. One of the features is theft detection lock, which uses powerful AI technology to detect when your phone is snatched out of your hands and somebody is trying to run. It detects unusual activity and locks the device. Another great feature is offline lock. In the event thief is trying to turn off the connection, turn on the airplane mode, continues to use the device, the phone detects that it's unusual activity and it locks the device. In the event the thief is trying to disconnect your phone, turn on airplane mode, phone detects that and also locks the device.
I asked phone companies last year to help stop phone theft, and I'm glad Google has answered with a new security update. I'll keep working with mobile phone companies and the Met to crack down on phone theft and build a safer London for all. Here are 5 ways we're making London greener in 30 seconds. The Beaver is back. We're reintroducing wildlife to London to help nature thrive. We've planted over 500,000 trees since 2016. Our buses are getting greener. We now have over 1,000 zero-emission buses. We're pushing water companies to clean up our rivers and stop sewage from flowing into the Thames. We've helped cut air pollution by nearly a half in central London and are working on making sure every family can breathe cleaner air. Together, we're making London greener for everyone.
Everybody loves a great night out. It's good for the soul. I'm Marina Ahmad. I'm the chair of the London Assembly Economy, Culture and Skills Committee. We've been investigating London's nightlife and have produced a cross-party report, having spoken to many experts.
We think the £1 levy is a really effective and simple way for industry to invest in the research and development of this talent pipeline and reinvest that money into the refugee community.
We're asking the Mayor, his Nightlife Task Force and the government to act on our recommendations and make London a truly 24-hour city. You can read our report on the London Assembly website.
I was born and raised in Tooting. It's where I've lived my entire life and where I've raised my own family. But right now, if you were to buy a modest 3-bed home in Tooting, you wouldn't see much change for £1 million. How is someone from a working class background in Tooting today, with no financial support from their family, supposed to raise a 100 grand deposit, let alone secure a £900,000 mortgage? The average price of a house in London is now almost 14 times the typical household income, 14 times. So anyone claiming the solution lies in cutting back on flat whites or Netflix needs to have a serious reality check. This crisis was decades in the making. It can't be solved through one policy, one budget, or even one government term. It will take time. But know that brick by brick, we can and we will solve it, because your future and the future of London rests on it.
Hi, I'm Krupesh Irani, Chair of the Health Committee at the London Assembly, and today the committee is here at Liverpool Street Station with the London Ambulance Service to learn more about CPR and defibrillators and how anyone can use one to save a life.
At the moment, less than 1 in 10 people survive a cardiac arrest in this country, which is a poor statistic we need to increase. We know that if we can get hands on chest and early defibrillation within the first 3 to 5 minutes of cardiac arrest, it will double that person's chance of survival. That's why we need the public help.
There are 500 defibrillators across TfL stations in London, and using one can save someone's life.
The streets can be a cruel place when you're homeless. The biting cold, abuse from strangers, not knowing where you'll sleep, what you'll eat, or how you'll wash. But that's why hubs like this are so important. This is one of the services we fund to get people into the warm where they're safe. In London, we've delivered record funding to homelessness charities and service providers. We've also significantly increased City Hall's rough sleeping budget to help more Londoners who are struggling. Our 2024-2025 budget is more than 4 times the budget when I took office in 2016. We've helped around 17,600 people off the streets since then, and thanks to the hard work of so many people, 75% have stayed off the streets for good. More funding from the government is hugely welcomed and will make a huge difference as we approach Christmas and the coldest winter months. Absolutely no one should be sleeping rough in our city. Let's end it for good.
You get all emotional. Why is this a red flag?
Learning about equality, respect and kindness is one of life's most important lessons, and it's never too early to start developing these skills. We're funding a new innovative toolkit and workshops in primary schools to educate London's children about healthy, respectful relationships.
Are you married? What? Me super bit.
So today I've learned that how to spot healthy friendships and red flags in friendships, and how to be positive and not to pressure any of your friends to do something that they don't want to do, or that's going to be a red flag and negativity in a friendship.
We also, in class, we have made a little house of friendship. We draw a house, then we write what's wrong for the house and what's good for the house. Like, we should be honest to the house, we should be loyal, we shouldn't be gossiping about it.
A healthy relationship is friends that are loyal.
I've written to all primary school head teachers in the capital to outline City Hall's funding of this programme. It'll give teachers the expert training they need to empower the next generation of Londoners to stand up to sexism and misogyny in all its forms.
I would say a healthy relationship would be to, be positive, be kind, be honest, and speak truthfully, and be resilient.
I'll do everything in my power to create a safer and fairer London for everyone. More than 100,000 young Londoners now have access to great mentors.
Just to know that no matter what happens, you're going to have someone. That's a really, really important thing to me about having people there for me.
Too many young people in London face barriers to achieving their potential. One-to-one mentoring can be their turning point, helping them avoid negative pathways and create a brighter future.
We know we can't arrest our way out of youth violence. What we can do is invest early before struggles become problems.
I'm committed to working with schools, community groups, local authorities and other partners to ensure young Londoners get the support they need to reach their full potential. Okay Google, what are you doing to help combat phone theft?
We just rolled out theft protection features. One of the features is theft detection lock, which uses powerful AI technology to detect when your phone is snatched out of your hands and somebody is trying to run. It detects unusual activity and locks the device. Another great feature is offline lock. In the event thief is trying to turn off the connection, turn on the airplane mode, continues to use the device, the phone detects that it's unusual activity and unlocks the device. In the event the thief is trying to disconnect your phone, turn on airplane mode, phone detects that and also locks the device.
I asked phone companies last year to help stop phone theft, and I'm glad Google has answered with a new security update. I'll keep working with mobile phone companies and the Met to crack down on phone theft and build a safer London for all. Here are 5 ways we're making London greener in 30 seconds. The Beaver is back. We're reintroducing wildlife to London to help nature thrive. We've planted over 500,000 trees since 2016. Our buses are getting greener. We now have over 1,000 zero-emission buses. We're pushing water companies to clean up our rivers and stop sewage from flowing into the Thames. We've helped cut air pollution by nearly a half in central London and are working on making sure every family can breathe cleaner air. Together, we're making London greener for everyone.
Everybody loves a great night out. It's good for the soul. I'm Marina Ahmad. I'm the chair of the London Assembly Economy, Culture and Skills Committee. We've been investigating London's nightlife and have produced a cross-party report, having spoken to many experts.
We think the £1 levy is a really effective and simple way for industry to invest in the research and development of this talent pipeline and reinvest that money into the grassroots community.
We're asking the Mayor, his Nightlife Task Force and the government to act on our recommendations and make London a truly 24-hour city. You can read our report on the London Assembly website.
I was born and raised in Tooting. It's where I've lived my entire life and where I've raised my own family. But right now, if you were to buy a modest 3-bed home in Tooting, you wouldn't see much change for £1 million. How is someone from a working class background in Tooting today, with no financial support from their family, supposed to raise a 100 grand deposit, let alone secure a £900,000 mortgage? The average price of a house in London is now almost 14 times the typical household income. 14 times. So anyone claiming the solution lies in cutting back on flat whites or Netflix needs to have a serious reality check. This crisis was decades in the making. It can't be solved through one policy, one budget, or even one government term. It will take time. But know that brick by brick, we can and we will solve it, because your future and the future of London rests on it.
Hi, I'm Krupesh Irani, Chair of the Health Committee at the London Assembly, and today the committee is here at Liverpool Street Station with the London Ambulance Service to learn more about CPR and defibrillators and how anyone can use one to save a life.
At the moment, less than 1 in 10 people survive a cardiac arrest in this country, which is a poor statistic we need to increase. We know that if we can get hands on chest and early defibrillation within the first 3 to 5 minutes of cardiac arrest, it will double that person's chance of survival. That's why we need the public help.
There are 500 defibrillators across TfL stations in London, and using one can save someone's life.
The streets can be a cruel place when you're homeless. The biting cold, abuse from strangers, not knowing where you'll sleep, what you'll eat, or how you'll wash. But that's why hubs like this are so important. This is one of the services we fund to get people into the warm where they're safe. In London, we've delivered record funding to homelessness charities and service providers. We've also significantly increased City Hall's rough sleeping budget to help more Londoners who are struggling. Our 2024-2025.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to People's Question Time. Before we start, please take a moment to look around and note the fire exit nearest to you. In the event of an emergency, please follow instructions given by staff. Please switch your electronic devices to silent mode now, and if you wish to tweet about tonight's event, it's #PQT. This evening we have 6 topic areas to discuss and we'll spend up to 18 minutes on each. This is how it works. For each topic, the chair will take 3 questions at a time. The first 2 questions will be taken from those of you here in the audience with your hands raised. The third question will be taken from the live chat forum of our online registered audience participating via the live stream. For each topic, the most liked questions as voted for by the online registered audience will be asked. The Chair will then direct these 3 questions from each topic to the Mayor and then a London Assembly member. We have no advance notice of the questions. To make sure we get through as many questions as possible and cover a range of issues, duplicated questions will not be asked. Do keep your questions short and on topic and refrain from abusive or defamatory remarks, as these will not be posted. For those of you here in the audience, if you're able to stand to ask your question, please do this, as it will make it easier for those on stage and the cameras to see you. Please wait for a member of staff with a microphone to reach you before you start speaking. Please keep your questions short so we can get to as many of you as possible, and please ask questions rather than make speeches. To ensure we create a safe environment for everyone here tonight, we will not tolerate abusive or intimidating behaviour. Please also refrain from heckling to ensure that questions can be asked and answered without disruption. Now, with so many of you here in person and online, we won't have the time for everybody to ask a question. So if you don't get yours asked tonight, please do email mayor@london.gov.uk. Please also remember to fill in the feedback form online. There are QR codes around the room for you to scan your device or go onto our dedicated webpage, london.gov.uk/PQT. And we'll finish tonight at 9 p.m. sharp. And now, everyone, without any further ado, please welcome your chair for this evening, ITV News broadcaster and Loose Women host, Charlene White.
Well, a huge thank you to the voice of Goddess for that introduction. As she said, I am Charlene White, and welcome to all of those here in person. Thank you so much for coming. And to those who are joining us online. We're in the London Borough of Haringey, of course, tonight. And we are observing Ramadan. I hope those who had iftar this evening are feeling nice and full and ready to get involved this evening. But if you are observing prayer tonight, we have put aside a prayer room on the ground floor. If you make your way to the doors just over there, there'll be someone there to assist you and show you where our prayer room is. And it really is lovely to see you guys here tonight. We will be shortly joined by the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, and representatives of the London Assembly, of course. The Mayor and the London Assembly work to improve life for us Londoners and make London a better place for all of us. So, what is tonight about? Well, it is about your chance to put your questions to the Mayor and the London Assembly members who'll be sat here on this panel and find out what they are doing for the capital and for its people. Basically, what they are doing for you. So please welcome to the stage your London Assembly members. Few of them to take their seats, so keep going. Incredible, thank you very much. So now they're all taking their seats. Please welcome the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan. Now, I'm a Londoner born and bred. For those who are residents of Haringey, I'm South London. So thank you for having me. We have with us Assembly Member Joanna McCartney, if you can give a wave. There she is. Who, of course, is the Assembly member for the area representing Enfield and Haringey, is also the statutory Deputy Mayor. So, tonight, we will be taking questions on topics in the following order. We have got transport, of course, policing and safety, air quality and the environment, housing and London's economy. And the time that we have left over at the end will cover anything else that's not already been covered. So how is this going to work? Well, for each topic, we'll begin with 2 live questions from you here in the audience, followed by 1 question from our online audience who are joining us online. Thank you so much to all of you who are logged in. If we have time for additional questions, we'll sort of continue in the same way. So this bit is very, very important. You must keep your questions short. I'll be asking the Mayor and the Assembly members to keep their answers short and to the point so we can get through as many questions as possible. If you do decide to start giving a speech rather than a question, I will have to stop you and ask you to get to your question. In quite the same way, if the London Assembly members start giving a speech rather than just giving a short and concise question, I will be also reminding you to keep it short. So if I interrupt you, it is for a reason. Tonight isn't just about 1 person or 2 people, it's about everybody being able to have their chance to answer your questions. So if I do stop you, it is my prerogative, and I'd appreciate it if you do stop and move on to answering the question at hand. So please do listen to the questions and answers with respect. Do not heckle, do not disrupt the meeting if this happens, and you do not stop. After being warned, I will have to ask you to leave the event. So how do you ask your questions? There's a lot of rules for me to get through tonight, so bear with me. So to ask a question, I will ask you to raise your hand, and I will randomly select people from the room. Do ask your question to the related topic. If you ask a question that's not related to the topic at hand, I will ask you to stop and wait until we get to that topic. For audiences that are joining us online, there are many cameras around the room. The chat function is for questions only. Comments will not be published. The most popular upvoted question online will be put to our esteemed panel if that question hasn't already been asked. So as I've said, submit your questions to the topic at hand. They'll be published a few minutes before the start of the relevant topic, so don't forget to like the ones that you want to be answered. You can start liking questions for the transport section now while I finish off these introductions. Now, the Mayor and the Assembly members will be aware of the rules around using resources which apply to this event, and they are aware of the code of conduct which applies to them. So I'm very much reminding you to be mindful of that. And if I believe that you are not adhering to the code of conduct, once again, I will ask you respectfully to stop. I can be very tough. I'm the mum of 2 young children. So now I would like to welcome the Deputy Chair of the London Assembly, Len Duval, to give his opening address.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to People's Question Time. My name is Len Duval. I'm the Deputy Chair of the London Assembly, and it's a pleasure to be amongst you here tonight, those that are online and those that are physically present in the room. The London Assembly is the voice of Londoners, and our job is to hold the Mayor and advisers to account, but also to discuss matters of importance to Londoners. Today's People's Question Time is the second since the London elections of May last year. As an Assembly, we remain committed to standing up for Londoners and through our committees and scrutiny work and engagement with our young people. Since the last People's Question Time in December, the Health Committee published its report to access to dental care in London, urging the Mayor to look at fluoridating London's water. The Budget and Performance Committee examined the Mayor's proposed budget for 2025/26 before the whole Assembly met to debate it. The budget was approved without amendments. The Economy and Culture and Skills Committee published a report with its recommendations on how to support London's nighttime economy, including music venues. Finally, we launched the inaugural London Youth Achievement Awards in close collaboration with the London Youth Assembly to recognise and celebrate the impact of our young people across London. On Monday the 24th of February marked the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The London Assembly is on record in outlining its unanimous support for the people of Ukraine and our sister city in Kiev in their fight against Russian aggression. I'd like to thank the Mayor for his work in supporting Ukrainians and fleeing conflicts in seeking sanctuary in London. And I think we should thank past and present governments for their continuing support of the people of Ukraine and Kiev. Londoners have collected supplies and opened their homes to Ukrainian families and represented the best of our city. I'd like to thank them for doing so and to make Ukrainians feel welcome in a very dark world at this moment in time. But for Ukrainians, they faced it for a long time. But we're there, we want to stand beside them and support them in this struggle. We will continue to stand up shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainian people against any form of aggression. Now, finally, you can keep up with the work of the London Assembly by following our social media channels and watching our meetings at City Hall or online. This year marks the 25th anniversary of our creation of both Mayor and Assembly, and we look forward to reminding you all our work that we've done on your behalf over that time. Until then, thank you once again for joining us this evening. Thank you.
A huge thank you to Assembly Member Duval for that. So now I would like to invite the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, to give his opening address.
Well, thank you, Charlene. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be able to join you here at the magnificent Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's great to see the Southgate Wood Green MP, Bambos Charalampus, in the front row, and the great leader of Harrogate Council, Councillor Pere Ahmet, in the front row, plus local police officers as well. You know, I'm conscious as I speak, Spurs are actually in action right now against AK Alkmaar in the Europa League. So apologies for the clash if we have Spurs fans here tonight. I'm not going to ruin it by telling you the current score. You know, it's brilliant to see such a strong turnout this evening and to have the opportunity to hear directly from Londoners and answer your questions. As the title of the event suggests, People's Question Time is about you, not us. So I'll keep my words relatively brief. Since I was first elected mayor 8.5 years ago, we've made some huge strides and paved the way for further progress. We've started a golden era of council house building, with more new council homes being built than any time since the 1970s. We've acted to keep the cost of transport down by introducing the hopper and freezing tube and train fares 5 times, with bus and tram fares now frozen again for a 6th time. We've taken world-leading climate action and cleaned up our air all across London. We funded from City Hall more than 1,300 more police officers on our streets and created more than 500,000 positive opportunities for young Londoners at risk of getting involved in criminal gangs or crime. And for the first time in the history of our city, we're delivering free school meals for all state primary school children in London. My recent budget highlighted the importance of having a new government that wants to work with London rather than against us. After years of government cuts and underinvestment in our police, this time, thanks to additional support from the new government, we're able to put more than £1 billion of funding into the Met Police Service, at the same time as investing in youth clubs, after-school clubs and youth workers. This is the largest amount ever spent on policing in the capital and the biggest year-on-year increase ever proposed for the Met. And it was made possible by a government that's determined to turn the page on austerity and work hand in hand with my administration at City Hall. Now, of course, we still have a long way to go when it comes to tackling crime in our city. It's why we're continuing to provide constructive activities for our young people, including funding record amounts of mentors. The injection of new government funding is vital to our approach of being tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. Speaking of which, one way we can prevent vulnerable young Londoners from taking the wrong path in life is by making sure our economy is firing on all cylinders and creating jobs, apprenticeships, and opportunities that are accessible to all of our communities. This is one of the primary objectives of our new London Growth Plan, which I was proud to launch last week in partnership with London councils, businesses, universities, trade unions, and others. While I'm pleased with the progress we've made and confident in the value of the work we're doing, I know there's always going to be more we can do in every direction to fix London's housing crisis, to end rough sleeping, to ease the pressure of the cost of living, and to give young Londoners the helping hand they deserve to make the best of themselves. Let me end by just saying this. I'll never forget that London gave me the opportunities to go from the council estate, where I grew up, to being mayor of the greatest city on earth. And so my promise to you tonight is that I'll continue working flat out to ensure that all Londoners get the same shot at fulfilling their potential in a city that is fairer, safer, greener, and more affordable for all. Thank you very much.
A huge thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Okay, we're going to hand it over to all of you in the audience and those of you who are joining us online. Our first topic is transport. I will take questions in threes, the first two from the audience here and the third from the online audience, of course, via the live chat, very popular section. We'll go to the lady in the flowery navy blue top, long brown hair, if we use number 3 paddle. If you could pass the microphone to her, that'd be amazing.
Hi. While working with my MP in contacting TfL to make safety changes to the junction where my fiancé was killed in May last year, I was sent a response by TfL which did not acknowledge my concerns, answer my questions, or propose how they intend to make it safer. My fiancé is not the only person to have been killed at this junction in 2024. How will you make TfL more accountable to answer questions directly and honestly instead of sending a template response like I had, which is neither helpful nor respectful to victims left after a traumatic death of a loved one?
Thank you so much for your bravery in asking that question. I know it can't have been very easy for you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take the gentleman in the navy blue zip-up top with the beige hat that's just sitting there. If we can use paddle number 4 for that. You've just taken your beige hat off. But if we can identify you, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the taxi action plan, the Black Cab action plan, is due out very shortly. We've had enormous support from the Assembly. Assembly members have passed a motion calling for you to act on it. We've had great support from both of your deputy mayors, Seb and Meti, and the fact that we're 65% green. We've got the greenest taxi fleet in the world. Your taxi action plan for our future is absolutely crucial. Will you be supporting the GLA motion, and will you be doing all you can to ensure that we thrive and carry on? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have a question now from online. Thank you very much to those who are getting involved. This says, while I understand the push to get people to take public transport or walk and cycle, some Londoners do need to drive, whether that's people with businesses or perhaps mobility challenges. What are you doing to cut congestion on our roads? So just to recap those 3 questions, I will of course go to the Mayor first, and then I will give other Assembly members the chance to answer. The first question is looking at the way in which the London Assembly engages with those who lose loved ones on the streets of London due to riding bicycles or pedestrians, for example. The second one is more support for those who are part of our taxi service. And the third question is, what is it that you're doing in order to be able to support those who drive in London and sort out the congested roads? Sir Sadiq Khan, if you'd like to go first.
Firstly, can I just apologise to you unequivocally? The response you received is just not good enough, and I'm really sorry. What I'll do is make sure at the end I'll come and speak to you. You're the second bereaved person I've spoken to in the last year who's had a bad response from TfL. It's not normally like this, but it's wrong, and I'm sorry, and we'll make sure we speak to you in relation to the issue you raised. Just so you know, we have set up a number of things to support not just victims of road traffic accidents, but also bereaved families. Actually, Caroline Russell, who's from a different party to me, came up with a really good idea 2 years ago about getting the same sort of service those who are victims of road traffic fatalities, those who are victims of crime receive. So we now work with Break, Road Peace and Sarah Hope Line to improve the service bereaved families receive, but also to support you in these difficulties. But clearly, your service that you received was awful, unacceptable, and we'll try and make sure lessons are learned. My Deputy Mayor for Transport is here, Seb Dance. We will make sure we speak to you. The issue you raise is dangerous junctions and how we can make them not dangerous. So we've got a list of dangerous junctions. It's like a league table. I'm sorry, but it's as crude as that. So you've got like 1 down to 74, 75, and we go through them to try and make them not dangerous. There are a number of factors about which junctions we choose. The most dangerous, frankly speaking, the cost of doing a junction, the disruption it'll cause, so forth. And so we go through that list. So when Seb meets with you, we'll make sure we make a note of the junction you refer to, and we'll speak to you properly during the course of the work we're doing. The good news, we've really made record numbers of junctions safe. We're improving road safety. Just to give you an example, last year we had a 25% reduction in collisions on our roads, a 24% reduction in those killed or seriously injured because of the progress we're making. So I'm really keen to meet with you to see what more we can do. And again, can I apologise again for the treatment you received? It's simply not good enough, and I'm sorry. In relation to Steve McNamara, Steve, firstly, thank you for...
I will also remind you to keep the questions short so we can get to lots of other people, your answers short, so we can get to others as well.
Sure. Steve, thank you for the work you do with LTDA, with Engaging. The great thing about you is even when you may not agree with what we're doing, you engage, and that's how we'll get the right outcome, right? And so TfL are looking at the proposals you're talking about. I'm really pleased that you've had a good experience with both Seb and the other Deputy Mayor, Will Norman, the Walking and Cycling Commissioner. You will know the investment we've given to black taxis. I think they're the jewel in our crowns. We'll carry on supporting this trade. So we'll respond to you shortly in relation to TfL's response to the action plan, but thank you for the work you do. In relation to the question online, Charlene, look, the reason why we've got congestion is basically we've got too many cars using our roads. So we've got to try and encourage them with a carrot where it's possible to leave your cars at home, good public transport, safer cycling. We've increased fourfold the amount of cycle networks, safer walking, but also try and encourage those who don't need to be on the road to get off the road. One of the big problems for congestion is people digging up our roads, the utility companies. So we're trying to coordinate with the councils and the utility companies in relation to digging up our roads by charging them. That's an incentive to be quick when it comes to digging up our roads. And the final thing, Charlene, which is part of the equation, we're trying to speed up our buses. You are less likely to use a bus if that bus is stuck in traffic, so more bus lanes to try and speed up our buses so it's an attractive alternative to the private car where you can.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think we may have met at the Road Peace event back in November for road traffic victims. And I just want to thank you for the bravery of coming here tonight and telling your story so very, very clearly, because this is the reality of what happens on our roads. An awful lot of people are still being killed and seriously injured on London's roads every year. We have a target for Vision Zero, which is that no one should be killed or seriously injured on the roads by 2041. But last year, 110 people were killed. In 1 month, 13 people were killed as pedestrians on our roads. That was in October. So this is a really serious matter, and it's one of the reasons why there are so many new things coming in, like low traffic neighbourhoods, like 20 miles an hour speed limits. This is about trying to keep people safe. It's about trying to make sure that everyone gets home safely at night when they go out to work or to the shops or whatever it is. Now, the Mayor mentioned these junctions. There are many, many junctions across London which are dangerous in different ways. There are still 100 junctions where there are traffic signals for vehicles, but not for people to cross the road. And those have to be an absolute priority. And the Mayor knows I keep going on about those junctions because we need to make sure that wherever there are traffic signals for motor traffic, there's got to be a phase in the lights when someone can get across safely. I'm very happy to pick this up with you later. I know I'm going to get told off for not answering questions quickly enough. So Steve McNamara from the LTDA, you've done so much work over the years since I met you on greening your fleet. Totally appreciate that. And I am sure that the Mayor and the Mayor's teams will listen to you hard. Yeah, he's nodding. And the person online who was talking about there's all this push for walking and cycling and public transport, what are you doing to cut congestion? Literally, the measures that we're putting in to make it safe for people to walk or ride a bike or putting in more public transport, that is about cutting congestion. And we need to do an awful lot more of it because the more people that catch the bus or go by tube or ride a bike, the more space there is on the roads. So we really need the Mayor to just keep investing in making it safe for people to walk, cycle, and also to catch the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's always a pleasure to see you, Steve. Always a pleasure to see Steve McNamara. Right, let's move on to Assembly Member Baker.
Apologies, sorry, slightly took me by surprise there. My name's Ellie Baker. I'm a London Assembly member for the Labour Group. I represent the whole of London. I'm also chair of the Transport Committee. And I'll answer really briefly really important questions. On congestion, there is a lot of work going in on that in terms of improving public transport, particularly in outer London, particularly the Superloop, allowing people to get around from bits of outer London to other bits of outer London. But it's not going down quick enough, to be honest, congestion. And anyone who drives around London knows that. And we need to understand more clearly who's actually on the roads, whether there's an increase in commercial traffic, how we can ensure that those trips, which are essential for keeping our city serviced, are being done in the best way so that the people who need to drive can get around easily and our buses aren't snarled up in congestion. Briefly on the taxi and private hire plan, it's been covered by both speakers. Transport Committee are probably awaiting, not quite as excitedly as you are, but I'm sure pretty excitedly. But it's absolutely essential that the role of taxi and private hire in doing journeys that cannot be served by public transport for a variety of reasons or cannot be walked and cycled is acknowledged, and that the trade is actively supported to be able to thrive, and we continue to have that service on our street. So I could talk about that for a lot longer, but I won't. And to lady in the front, I mean, you've had a commitment from the Mayor. I don't think you're going to get any better than that. But just to say that I think anyone who works with TfL has a lot of respect for what it does, but it can sometimes not operate on a human level, and we hear that in other areas. So all my sympathy to you, and if there's anything that the Transport Committee can do in that area to support the Mayor, then we absolutely will do.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member Baker. Quick and concise and to the point. Let's remember that tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Assembly Member Garrett.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm Assembly Member Garrett. I'm the Assembly Member for Croydon and Sutton, faraway boroughs of Croydon and Sutton, and also the leader of the Conservative group. In the interest of time, I really would just like to focus on the question about safety, because I mean, it's something that I suppose is personally of interest to me. I cycled here this evening. I'm very conscious of not every road is a brilliant road to cycle along. Bishopsgate was fun this evening. What I will say is that TfL do very many things extremely well. And I'm not a knocker of TfL, but there is one thing that I think they consistently get wrong, and you've put your finger on it, which is the way that they treat people, either people who've been injured or seriously injured at their hands effectively, either directly if it's a bus or indirectly on a junction. or even the relatives, grieving relatives of someone who has been killed. And I've spoken to quite a number of people over a very long time. A man called Tom, who was hit by a London bus wing mirror, effectively left for dead on the pavement. It was only the fact he thinks that it was extremely cold that sort of kept him alive until the ambulance was there. TfL never really got in touch with him about it. He was in a coma for a very long time. Melissa, who was killed at Victoria, and then the Victoria bus station was redone, and almost immediately afterwards, Kathy was killed in very, very similar circumstances. I've spoken to Kathy's family, and they, again and again, I hear a story a bit like yours, which is that TfL, when things are going well, they're very happy to tell you how well things are going and how brilliant they are, and often they are brilliant and they are going well. And I think it is a consistent blind spot, and I've brought it up with the mayor a number of times, that when things go wrong, either extremely badly wrong, when someone is killed or seriously injured, or even just when the service is a bit awful. You know, the Croydon tram had a whole period last year when it just wasn't running. They go to ground and they don't communicate, and they sort of go into like a submarine mode where they only want to pop up and talk to people when they can tell a good news story. It really isn't good enough, and I take the mayor's commitment to tackle it, but what I will say is that it isn't the first time there's been a commitment, and it is very much not the first time I've heard it. So I will continue to be an absolute nuisance on this issue, because I think it is probably the single biggest blind spot that TfL have, and it doesn't seem that hard to be better at it, just to be a bit human sometimes when something has gone badly wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it just that question that you're going to give an answer to? Okay, thank you very much. We have time for one very short question from the audience. The gentleman in the black jacket with the orange ribbing on it there. If we can have the paddle number 6, if you go to the gentleman just there, if you keep your hand out so that we can see exactly who it is. Thank you very much. If you're able to stand, that would be amazing. Thank you very much.
It's ironic that you come to me after this gentleman has spoken, because my beef is transport. 2 things on a small issue for Mr. Khan directly.
With a question?
2 little questions.
One question. You've got to pick one.
Shepherd's Bush Central Line. Every morning between 6 and 7, cyclists. Never stop at the lights. I've complained to Hammersmith Police Station. I've complained for over a year. I found out the names of 2 sergeants at Hammersmith Police Station. I was advised to go last Saturday week. I went at 11 o'clock. Mysteriously, he's out because Fulham are playing at Fulham. Okay, he might have been at Fulham, but I was told he would be there, and he wasn't there. I've rung 101. I waited 2 weeks to reply. I'm just being fobbed off. I will not be fobbed off anymore.
So you want to find out from the Assembly members and from the Mayor exactly what they're going to do about that junction.
And please don't tell me the police will turn up, because I've been told that for the last 3 years, and not once.
Okay.
In
So what are
over
we
1,000
going
days.
to? So the issue here, the gentleman, the question that he'd like to ask is, what are we doing about those cyclists who do consistently go through the red lights?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm afraid, look, although the vast majority of cyclists do behave themselves, a small minority don't. We've seen this also at something called bus stop bypasses, where some cyclists don't follow the highway code and risk their own safety, but
We
also
do
the safety of
have to give the
passengers.
Mayor a time to answer. But we have to give the Mayor some time to answer. Please go
But
ahead.
also risk the safety of pedestrians like yourself. So in different areas, what Safe and Able teams are doing is going to patrol those parts of, in your case, Shepherd's Bush, where there are concerns about cyclists not cycling safely. The first time I've heard of the Shepherd's Bush incident, I can take away the Shepherd's Bush traffic lights and speak to the local BCU there, see if there have been complaints. We can make sure the S&T go and patrol that particular crossing to make sure cyclists who aren't obeying the law are stopped and action taken.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your question. I'm afraid we are out of time where the transport question is concerned. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, please do visit the People's Questions homepage on the london.gov website, which tells you how you can submit one in writing. So now we're going to move on to policing and safety, which includes any questions about community safety, policing and the London Fire Brigade. I will tell you the rules once again. We'll take those questions in 3s, 2 from the audience, 1 online, and then others if we do have time. The gentleman that's right over there in the corner, cream T-shirt, right there, this is right by paddle number 1. If you'd like to tell us your question, please.
We know that youth crime is still a daunting sight. However, according to the ONS, crime is lower in London than the rest of the country, and that's under your leadership. You mentioned your manifesto pledge to invest in a mentoring scheme for young people, which you have achieved. My question is, So far, what are the benefits of this mentoring scheme? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We go on to the next question. The lady here in the navy blue top and the black jacket. If we can do paddle number 6, if you'd like to bring it just down here, that'd be great.
Thank you. This week marks 4 years since Sarah Everard was abducted, raped, and murdered by a serving Metropolitan Police. Recently, the High Court ruled and set the standard that police officers who fail vetting status can remain in their jobs. When will you start policing the Met Police so that women and young girls can feel safe in London?
Okay. And we have a question from online. Thank you so much for everybody that's asking questions. That's very similar, that one, to the question that we've had here, so I'll ask this one. Neighbourhood policing is the cornerstone of any good police force. What are you doing to restore neighbourhood policing? So we've got those 3 questions. You've got one that's concentrating on youth crime and asking specifically about the mentoring scheme that was launched for young people. We have a question regarding the anniversary of Sarah Everard and asking when women and girls can feel safe, and the neighbourhood policing in terms of restoring it. Mr. Mayor.
So thanks for all those questions. Look, the issue of youth crime, I'm somebody who grew up in a council estate but benefited from fantastic youth workers, a great youth club, and the boxing club actually saved us. It gave us something constructive to do in the evenings, the weekends, and the school holidays. Those day trips were a lifeline for my family and those in our estate. So I've seen the benefit of youth work, youth clubs, after-school clubs, and I think crime's not inevitable, it's preventable, and we should be investing in young people. You know, in the last 14 years, we've had more than 130 youth clubs closed down, more than 700 youth workers lose their jobs, and we're surprised when young people join criminal gangs and get involved in no good. I'm not excusing criminality. We've got to invest early to try and give young people constructive things to do.
And specifically to the question about the mentoring.
And I also benefit from mentors, not just my big brothers, but coaches, teachers, and others. And so the evidence we've got so far, 100,000 young people with a mentor, improved mental health, improved well-being, improved relationships with adults, improved attendance at schools, improved employment prospects. That's the difference a good mentor can make, and we're investing in more mentors going forward. And that's tough on the causes of crime, as well as, of course, being tough on crime. The second question, look, I remember that week really well. Sarah was abducted from near where I live on the South Circular. And you'll be aware of the role I had, because I lost confidence in the former commissioner, in ensuring Dame Louise Casey came in to do a report in the police service. And we also had the report from Dame Angioloni in relation to concerns around policing across the country. What this commissioner has done is look at previous allegations made against police officers, Operation Onyx. There is a domestic abuse serious offences unit looking into concerns against officers. And that's why I'm frustrated, like he is, at the recent court case, because the commissioner was trying to get rid of officers who failed their vetting and were told by the court they can't. So there's 2 things we are doing in this area to change the culture. One is appealing the court case, and 2 is asking the government to make it easier for us to get rid of police officers that shouldn't be police officers, but also make it more difficult for people to join the police service. We've got to change the culture in the police service. It's anti-racist, anti-misogynistic, and anti-homophobic. We've made good progress so far. There's still some way to go, and I think the Commissioner and others would agree with that analysis. In relation to the last question about neighbourhood policing, Charlene, look, I'm not going to beat about the bush. If you cut £1.1 billion from a police budget, if you cut a third of the Met Police funding, don't be surprised if policing's hollowed out. There are fewer police officers, fewer PCSOs, fewer police staff. What we're doing from City Hall, and there's been opposition from City Hall by some members of the Assembly, is using council tax to invest in more police to bring back the Bobby and the beat. So we don't have a link with neighbourhood teams. We've got a superintendent in each borough, inspectors in each community, and each ward in London has 2 named police officers and 1 community police support officer. And with the increased investment from the government and City Hall, we're going to increase those neighbourhood teams because they are the eyes and ears when it comes to police in our communities, providing valuable intelligence, but also deter young people getting involved in crime and catch criminals as well. Really important. Tough on crime, toughen the causes of crime.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Right, on to Assembly Member Roberts.
Good afternoon, good evening rather. My name is Gareth Roberts. I'm the Liberal Democrat Assembly Member for Hounslow, Richmond and Kingston upon Thames, and I'm also the Vice Chair of the Police and Crime Committee. Like you, I was shocked by the judgment which came out in that particular case. And I think that what we're dealing with is a very technical point, and the judgment had to be made on the technical point of law. And it is genuinely up to the government to change that piece of law, because it is absolutely crackers that people can be accused of all of these appalling behaviours and possibly offences and still remain in their position as a Metropolitan Police officer. And I know that the Metropolitan Police Commissioner is absolutely livid about this and is told the Police and Crime Committee that himself. So I hope that the law will be changed soon. I hope that the legal challenge, the appeal which is going through against that decision will be successful, because we have to restore trust and confidence in our police. We have to make sure that people are going to be confident that the people who are going to be protecting them will not be hurting them. So the sooner that can happen, the better. On our community safety officers, yes, again, I mean, I fully support the Mayor's decision to increase the council tax precept in order to make sure that there is direct funding going into the police, because we need to make sure that we've got the boots on the ground. We need to make sure that we've got that friendly, reassuring face in our communities. And one of the things which we really do need to be far better at in recognising is the vital work which is done by our PCSOs, our police community support officers, who more often than not are the ones who really get to grips with their day-to-day life within their borough. We have an excellent police PCSO in my ward, Maz Reagan, who has done so much to work with young people, getting them off the streets, giving them something to do of an evening, setting up a youth club, and now he's been recognised with the British Empire Medal from His Majesty in order for his services to the police, one of the only two which happened this year. So we need to really get behind our police, but really get behind the PCSOs, because they're the unsung heroes of our Metropolitan Police.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to Assembly Member Garbett.
Evening, I'm Zoe Garbett. I'm a London-wide Assembly Member for the Green Group. So firstly, to the question about youth services. So I've been holding the Mayor of London to account, as well as MOPAC, on what those youth services are delivering and what specific opportunities they're offering to young people. And it's a really great question what you asked. You're really focused on kind of outcomes and what difference it's making, so that's really important. The Greens on City Hall have always pushed the Mayor to invest more in youth services, but I'm hearing from councils and youth services across London that they're still having to reduce the numbers of staff, reduce the number of sessions, and I'm really worried about that, so it's something that I'll be continuing to scrutinise. And on your question regarding women not being able to trust the Met, I think it's disastrous. I think that ruling from the vetting is horrific. I think if the Met can't get rid of bad officers, then it is really eroding trust. But we need to look at kind of the misogyny, the institutional misogyny within the Met. And, you know, we need to listen to the female officers and what they're saying about their experiences and make sure that women can, can do their jobs properly within the police, but also look at the horrific culture we've got in this country. We've heard it described as a rape culture that just kind of condones terrible behaviour and banter that leads to horrific crimes against women. And we need to properly invest in women's organisations that do incredible work to support women. And then to the person online talking about neighbourhood policing, I really want to properly listen to people about what they need from their police service, and that includes listening to our young people. I'm really concerned about police in schools and the fact that young people aren't being listened to enough about the change in that service, that young people don't want police in schools and haven't been consulted about the change to that service. And we just need to look at different approaches to policing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Short and concise. We want all of these to be short and concise. We're going to move on now to Assembly Member Hall, who's also Chairman of the Assembly's Police and Crime Committee.
I am, thank you very much. And I'm a Conservative and a London-wide member. I won't repeat what colleagues have said. The one thing I will say, though, is that the Mayor constantly says that the safety of London is his number one priority. Well, I think any one of you would agree that if something is your number one priority, you fund it properly. and the Metropolitan Police is not being funded properly. And whilst we certainly have rogue members that are actually police officers, I should say to you that there's around 45,000 people that work for the Metropolitan Police, and 99% of them are damn good, hard-working officers, and we should be grateful for them. But they need more assistance, they need more resource, and we have just gone through a budget round which will leave the Metropolitan Police losing more officers. And we can't afford to lose more officers. Somebody online is talking about neighbourhood policing. Yes, they're short of officers. We need more officers out there. And somebody said that crime is better under Sadiq Khan. Let me just tell you that gun crime is up 34%, knife crime is up 4.4%, business robbery is up 74.5%. We have got to give the police more resource to make us all safer, because I'm sure being safe is number one on most of your agendas. And with the Mayor, until he starts looking at what the police need and starts funding them properly, I'm afraid we will continue to have problems.
Thank you for that. Moving on to Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for all your questions and the question online. Crime matters to everybody in London. It's something that we see on our streets day in, day out, and it matters to everyone. It terrifies me, and it should matter to young people in particular, because you need to feel safe. Everyone needs to feel safe, and that simply isn't happening at the moment. Assemblymember Hall has reeled off some stats, and I can do the same. I can talk about the 2% of burglaries in outer London result in a court summons or a charge, or the 50% increase in knife crime since the pandemic. The fact there's a phone stolen every 5 minutes on London streets, a rape reported every hour, and the fact that stop and search has halved in the last 3 years. Now, it's not universally popular, I know that, but it is a tool, a technique that works. Only today, this afternoon, I had a message about a machete being taken off the streets through a stop and search operation on Kilburn High Road. So it works, and it needs to be used as a tool that can help get these weapons off our streets. But I think most of us on the panel would say that we believe keeping Londoners safe and preventing crime is our number one priority. But there's only one person on this panel who's actually got the power to do that, to put his money where his mouth is. And whilst the 1.16 billion that he's talked about is hugely welcome, I don't denigrate that at all. However, what he won't tell you is that his budget that we've just approved, or the Assembly has approved last week, is actually spending more on net zero, 1.4 billion on net zero, $250 million more on that. So if you want to know what someone's main priority is, you follow the money.
What I will say, Assemblymember Wilson, is what you've managed to do in all of that is not answer a single one of those questions correctly.
What do we need to... What do we need to do to restore neighbourhood policing? We need to fund it properly. We need to stop wasting money on things that are virtue signalling.
Do not talk over me. Thank you very much. The audience here and those online are here to answer questions. If you want to give speeches, this is not the place to do it. These people have turned up here on a Thursday night to ask you questions which they deserve to have answered. If you want to be able to do speeches, you can record a video and pop that up online. It's not to be done here. I'd like to move on to Assemblymember Duval.
Thank you very much. Look, I just think we need to correct the impression. So the government has put more money in to this budget, this current budget, than has gone in the last 14 years. That's evidence, not me, not a political opinion, evidence. The Mayor consistently, year on year, has supported the policing budget against the cuts in the previous 14 years. He's put his money where his mouth is. The mentoring scheme that was talked earlier on and the benefits of it is important. If we can take young people away from the life of crime and going down that path, then actually it's money well spent. Prevention has to be an answer. Keep them out the system of criminality. It makes sense, and we need to spend money on that. On Vogue, the real challenge for us on Vogue is consistency. If you go into any police station with a crime and you're a woman or a young girl, that you're taken seriously, treated with respect, and follow the good best practice that's there. We really are working hard along with the professionals. And Susan, one thing I can agree with my Conservative colleagues, there are lots of good policing officers and staff trying to make a difference in protecting our communities. And the VOG issue is one where we're working with victims as well as interest groups to develop a better service. The Metropolitan Police knows it needs to change if it's going to deliver effective policing. That's the other strand that the Mayor is trying to promote. We saw that with the Casey review and other reports. And then finally about neighbourhood policing. Look, I was privileged to introduce neighbourhood policing back in 2004 under a previous mayor. We did that. What's happened since 2008, we've had stop and start about neighbourhood policing. We've got stability here where we can deliver. And for all those things about making sure that it works and delivers in your local communities, we know it's not perfect. We know across London there are still some gaps. We're working hard to fill those gaps. One of the issues is we need to get police officers out of the office to do what they were trained to do. Police officers in our community. The cuts have forced them back into the offices. We need to make sure that we replace some of those issues. And finally, it's not easy. The police alone cannot solve our crime problems in the capital. They're the number one agency to do it. They can work in partnership with local government that are facing their problems, but they also need the community on their side.
Okay.
We can do without some of the mixed messages about tackling crime. We know we need to take bad people off our streets. We know there are people that are into criminality that shouldn't be there. We can make a difference with the right policies, and we've got those.
I will go back to basics with this, but yes, you can give him a round of applause, but I'll go back to basics with this. We do want to keep answers short and concise and to the point, because if we do that, we're able to have more questions from the audience. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take any more questions on police and safety because there was a lot of chatter and it wasn't always answering the questions at hand. We've got a few more subjects to go through. So I will reiterate once again to the entire Assembly member and to the Mayor, can we please stick to answering the questions? We're not here for rhetoric. We're not here for speeches. We're here to answer the questions from the members of the public who have kindly come this evening to be able to hear you speak. So let's move on to air quality and environment. We'll take 2 questions from the audience and 1 from the live chat. The lady that's just at the back in the graphic T-shirt, if we can take paddle number 5, if we'd be able to give her the, there we go, if we give her the microphone, if you could make sure it's a question and not a speech, that would be incredible. Thank you.
Planning for the 2025 edition of the London Climate Action Week takes place 21st to 29th of June. It's progressing at speed. I'd like to know what the Mayor's Office is doing to involve more underserved communities in the activities.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go on to another question from another part of the room. If we take this gentleman in the blue jumper and the blue shirt, if we can use paddle number 3, that would be incredible. If you can get the mic, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for opposing the expansion of Heathrow. We're in a climate emergency and this kind of thing we don't need. Can I ask what further action you will be taking to stop this horrendous project and what can Londoners best do to assist you in doing that? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and we have a question from online. Thank you once again to everybody that's getting involved online. The question is, what are you doing to protect wildlife in London? So, those 3 questions. One was concentrating on London Climate Action Week and exactly what the Mayor is doing to make sure that underrepresented communities are a part of that. The second question was, what action is being taken regarding airport expansion? And number 3, what is it that you're doing to protect wildlife in London, Mr. Mayor?
Thanks for all those questions. So this year's London Climate Action Week will be the biggest and best ever. My Deputy Mayor for Environment, Mette Coburn's gone around London to get ideas to make sure that underserved communities, what in the olden days were called hard-to-reach communities, are involved in London Climate Action Week. And you'll be aware that those least responsible for climate change and bad air suffer the worst consequences in this issue. So we've got a big, exciting programme. If you go to the City Hall website, probably next month you'll see some of the plans for June, get in touch on Talk London about any other plans you've got. We're keen to have community activities across London during that week, and it's going to be a great week and the best ever. To the gentleman who asked about runway 3, can I just remind colleagues why I think runway 3 is a bad idea? Look, when you look at where Heathrow Airport is, it's the biggest conurbation in Europe. More people are affected by noise from 2 runways than all the people affected by Paris, Charles de Gaulle, Frankfurt, Madrid, Munich and Amsterdam. The air quality there is one of the worst in Europe, the worst in London. But also, the Independent Climate Change Committee said any expansion of aviation must abide by the climate change obligations. Add to that, a new runway would have to be built across the busiest motorway in the country. The M25 would have to go under a tunnel. A4 is going to be rerouted. More investment in Southern Rail, Elizabeth Line, Piccadilly Line. This is not the right option. And so I oppose runway 3. In the past, sir, I worked with councils like the one Gareth leads across London, cross-party and communities, and we took the previous plans to court. And if Heathrow come up with plans that don't address our concerns, I'm afraid we'll have to use similar methods to stop the runway happening. It's not the right solution to the challenges we face. To the question online, Charlene, about what more are we doing around wildlife, this is a really important question. Look, over the last 400 years, we've de-wilded our city. And we want to, from City Hall, re-wild our city. So the great news is we're bringing back bees and bats and beavers. The first 2 we named Justin Beaver, and the second one, Sigourney. And they've had kids. Sigourney and Justin have had kids. We're also cleaning up the river, really important for wildlife. Better air leads to better wildlife, and I'm really pleased that we've planted more than 570,000 trees, really important for wildlife. And this, for me, Charlotte, is an issue of social justice. Many Londoners don't have access to the countryside, to overseas holidays. We want to bring nature and wildlife to them.
Okay, thank you very much. We do like a little bit of banter. It helps lighten the mood at these things. Right, Assembly Member Mahfouz.
Thank you very much, Charlene, and thanks for the questions. I think, first of all, to your point about Climate Action Week, and it's great that you're getting involved and that you're organising things in your community. And as the Mayor has said, we know that actually the climate crisis that we're in at the moment impacts underserved communities far greater than others across the globe, both here in London but internationally as well. And so, as the Mayor said, it's not just about climate justice, it's about social justice, it's about racial justice, and we want to make sure that we're engaging as many Londoners in Climate Action Week so that they understand the impact of the climate crisis, but also what they can do themselves, but also encourage others to do more. And what the Mayor has done in the last term is very much delivered on clean air. It's will be in time one of his lasting legacies. And I think there's a challenge there in terms of that second question is, do we want to put that at risk with the expansion of Heathrow? And what I would say, I think on behalf of all of the Labour colleagues on this table, is actually no. We won't be able to see a proposal for an expansion of Heathrow which doesn't put the good work that we've done around air quality at risk. There are also impacts in my constituency of Ealing and Hillingdon for those who are impacted and blighted by noise, by the homes that will be lost, and so many other things. And on the last bit, wildlife in London, absolutely fantastic. I lived round the corner from Paradise Fields, where I was down there a couple of weeks ago with the Deputy Mayor of London to see and name the beavers that have been introduced there. We've got beavers that have been introduced in Enfield down the road here as well. And as the Mayor has said, planted over 500,000 trees. And again, I was at a school earlier this week where they are so enthused by planting trees in their playground. They are right next to the M4, right next to Heathrow. And those trees aren't just trees, they mean so much more for them because that will be cleaning the air, that will be providing a noise barrier for them as well. And so what I just got to be clear about is that, you know, what we need to do is we need to encourage the youth of the future to get engaged and make sure that all Londoners get involved with tackling the climate crisis.
Thank you very much. Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you very much, Charlene. I'm going to answer these questions directly and concisely because I won't dare face your chairing.
No one likes a brown noser.
Excellent. Fair point. At the back, London Climate Action Week. This is the way you frame this question is perfect because there is no environmental justice without racial, social, and economic justice too. And as has been said, we know internationally around the world, it's countries in the global south who have done the least to cause the climate crisis, who are facing the worst effects. But we see that here in London too. In fact, I would say the Mayor has just built a new road tunnel in Newham to Greenwich, one of the areas with the poorest air quality and also the area with some of the highest groups of marginalised communities. So there does need to be consistency in what happens. One proposal I've been putting for the last few years is something called a London Climate Panel. This is where groups of marginalised people and the poorest working class communities should come to the table. So as well as the Assembly members scrutinising the Mayor, I'd like to see more diverse voices inputting into policy directly to have direct impact on what the Mayor says. That then comes to Heathrow. I'm really pleased to hear what the Mayor's saying on Heathrow, and I want him to use that voice louder. I would say, without relitigating history, a few months ago I asked him if he would call on the government to suspend the Airport National Policy Statement. Now, he did that when there was a Conservative government. That was a way of stopping Heathrow in its tracks. He refused to do it. He said he wouldn't co-sign a letter with me because I'm the deputy leader of the Green Party. I thought it was sad to see that, and I want to work more closely with the Mayor because we know there's nothing more important than tackling the climate crisis, because it's both important for the environment, but it's also important in tackling inequality in our city too. And finally, on wildlife, as chair of the Environment Committee, I've been committing an investigation with colleagues into London's rivers. And we found out repeatedly one of the dangers about dirty rivers is the dangers for wildlife. And one of the key things the Mayor could do is work with Thames Water. Now, Thames Water, I think, have demonstrated that they are handing billions of pounds of dividends to shareholders and CEOs. And actually, what we need to be doing is nationalising Thames Water, taking it into public ownership. Now, just to finish off, the Mayor can't do that, and I accept that. But we have a Labour government and a Labour Mayor, and he said repeatedly during the election that these two things working together would be the wind in the sails. So it is time for the Mayor to say that not a penny of taxpayers' money should go to nationalising Thames Water, but the Labour government need to do it right now. Thank you.
Okay, we still have a little bit more time left, so we can take some more questions. Going to take a couple. The gentleman right here next to paddle number 3.
Can you hear me? Okay. My name's Edis. I'm a cyclist, and I also work in the public transport industry. What I would like to know is why are councils, MPs, ignoring the effects of low traffic neighbourhoods outside of these unjust zones? You spoke about social injustice, environmental injustice. I live outside of a low-traffic neighbourhood. More pollution, more congestion for much longer hours. I cycle to work daily in increased congestion and danger. And I'm vilified for speaking out that I'm anti-cycling, I'm anti-green, I'm anti-this, I'm anti-that. Mr. Mayor, what are you going to do to make us... Apologies, for our voices to be heard, for not to be vilified? We live outside low-traffic neighbourhoods. We are being harmed on a daily basis.
Okay.
Pollution is not being recorded, and I want to know why.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. Got a gentleman here at the back, grey jumper, white shirt, arm raised, paddle number 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if you care about the environment, you care about protecting our precious green belt. Once it's gone, it's gone. Now, your housing targets are putting the highest level of pressure on some of the boroughs with the highest amounts of green belt, and Labour boroughs such as up the road in Enfield are waving through housing developments on green belt sites. How can you claim to be a friend of the environment when all this is going on? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so those 2 questions for the London Assembly members and for the Mayor. Why are councils ignoring the air quality around low traffic neighbourhoods? And the second question, how can you claim to be a campaigner for green issues in London when there is so much housing being built on green belts?
Can I thank both the questioners for their questions? The first question from Ellis. So I'm not sure about which particular LTN you're talking about, so I can only speak generally about LTNs. And so low traffic neighbourhoods are done by councils They usually consult with local residents, but before they go permanent, they work with the local community. The evidence, generally speaking, is LTNs have led to our roads being safer. It's led to more people walking and cycling, and it's led to local shops doing better because more people are walking on those streets. Coincided with the 20 miles per hour, it's also led to, as I said last year, a reduction in collisions on our roads by 25%, a reduction in 24% in those killed or seriously injured. In relation to your particular LTN, I can't speak to your council. In relation to air quality, tomorrow will be published the one-year report of 1 year of ULAS, and you'll be able to see tomorrow what impact that's made, and it coincides with the LTNs across London as well. The second question in relation to the Green Belt is, so we have a London plan which sets out the planning rules in relation to London, and the basic rule is it should be brownfield first. And so when it comes to a particular borough, you've got to look at brownfield sites before you go to green belt sites, and then you can do grey belt. It is possible in exceptional circumstances to build on green belt, but in the past I've objected to a council if it's the case that they've not gone through the loops and the hurdles before they go to a green belt in terms of brownfield first and exceptional circumstances. I can't speak to the individual case, I'm afraid, the gentleman refers to.
Thank you very much. Assembly Member Tyrrell.
Thank you, Chair. On LTNs, I completely agree with you. They don't work. We've seen that. There was one installed a couple of years ago in my constituency. I represent Bexley and Bromley. One installed up on Crystal Palace, actually installed by Croydon Council at the time to funnel their traffic onto Bromley Road. And that's what we saw. We saw them congested, which is why I'm so disappointed that the money Transport for London give to local councils to improve road safety, which is called the LIP funding, that is actually the guidance being given by Transport for London is to use that money priority-wise to install new LTNs. That means money's being taken away from improving dangerous road junctions, making them safe, to just pursue these anti-car policies that don't work. So I really hope the Mayor will look again at that priority so this money can be used by councils on schemes that will actually improve road safety. And on the green belt, it completely links to the final question on the previous section about wildlife. We've got to protect our green belt. It provides huge benefits to people's physical health, to people's mental health. It provides huge benefits to biodiversity. Out in Bromley, we have a Highland cow on our things. That's the biodiversity. We have got some great wildlife here. And it's not a choice of building on the green belt or delivering homes. I look at the redevelopment of Thamesmead in Bexley. And what Peabody are doing there is, when they're redeveloping homes and when they're redeveloping the estate, they're actually taking the environment in and they're looking to enhance the local environment with the work they're doing. And they've completely installed some, got new life now brewing in a lot of the ponds down there and things. It's absolutely fantastic, some of the environment work that they're doing down that way. So I don't accept that it's a choice between building or protecting our green belt.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We have another question from online, and that is, and we have enough time, I think, for the Mayor to be able to answer this. What are you doing to achieve net zero in London, Mr. Mayor?
Well, despite some people being opposed to me getting to net zero, I think it's very important to get to net zero. So we now have the largest number of zero-emission buses of any city in Western Europe, 1,900. As Steve said, more than half our black taxis are now zero emission. We've managed to encourage more people to use public transport and cycle by having 4 times as much cycle network, really important. Since I've been mayor, from 2016 to 2022, we've not got figures for the last 2 years, carbon emissions are down by 21%. And I'm hoping tomorrow's ULEZ report will let us know if, in addition to cleaning up air, we've managed to also reduce carbon emissions as well. This is really important. As Zach said, there is the costs of inaction far outweigh the costs of action when it comes to getting to net zero. And by the way, it's an opportunity to create jobs. Who's going to build the solar panels, the electric vehicles, the electric buses? Who's going to install the charging points, the rapid charging points? This is an opportunity to skill up Londoners to have the jobs of tomorrow.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Okay, We can move on now from air quality and the environment, but also to anybody online or in the audience, if you didn't get a chance to ask your question, you can submit one online and it should be answered within 20 working days. So now we're going to move on to housing. I'll take the first two questions from the audience, one online as per usual. Oh, this gentleman here with the grey beard popped his hand up super fast. We'll take one from you. If paddle number 3, if you'd like to pass him the microphone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We all agree that we need to maintain and improve and build more housing in London. But what is the Mayor and the Assembly doing to ensure that existing residents on estates that are being regenerated are treated fairly, are kept safe, and are not unduly impacted? For some context, me and my neighbours on the Eric estate in Mile End have been in temporary accommodation for over a year now as a result of one of the Mayor's projects, and we have no idea when we're going to be back in our homes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, so who's the house? Is it council or is it housing association?
It's East End Homes Housing Association.
Okay, thank you very much. The gentleman here in the blue T-shirt and the glasses, paddle number 6, if you'd like to give him, yes.
Thank you. I'm a director of a fast-growing company in London. We've grown from 150 staff 3 years ago to 900 today. Our staff in their 20s, they can't afford housing rents in London. Our staff in their 30s are struggling to start a family in London and buy a property. How are we going to crack the housing crisis in London, please?
Okay, thank you very much. The question online is very similar to yours, actually, so I'll take another one from the audience. The gentleman right there in the back, right by paddle number 2, in the corner, grey T-shirt, hand raised. If you'd be able to, paddle number 2, give him the microphone. Thank you very much.
It's actually a shirt.
Oh, is it a shirt?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Still looks lovely.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, Mr. Mayor, as you know, in the capital, rent is going up and up. You've been here for 3 years. When would we build more homes so that Londoners can have cheaper rent?
Okay, thank you very much.
Or do you need a third term, fourth term?
Okay, also very similar to this gentleman's question, but we've got, how about the lady in the red jumper? Have I got it right? Is it a jumper? Oh, thank goodness. I'll have no one question my fashion knowledge. Right, if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you very much. As you said, more houses has been built, and many residents are facing significant and unexplained increases in service charges, with little transparency from housing association like L&Q. In our case, the charge has doubled, with heating costs alone set at £50,000 per year. L&Q has since stated that this increase was due to a miscalculation in service charge, estimated an error that predates our property percentage. This means we sign a contract based on incorrect financial information. What legal avenues do we have to challenge this? How do we residents demand accountability and ensure fair pricing? Additionally, with the introduction of the new common hold law, what does this mean for existing leaseholder? Is this a legal route for transitioning to freehold ownership?
Thank you very much for your questions. So, those 3 questions. How can you ensure that existing residents are kept safe during rebuilding? The gentleman that was asking about his staff being able to afford housing and how to crack the housing crisis within London, and quite a few other people asked for similar questions, just in slightly different ways. And the third question, what to do about fair pricing when it comes to service charge increases, which of course was in the news just a couple of days ago. Mr. Mayor.
Sure, I had 4 questions, but I'll do 3. I don't mind, but let's. So the first question on estate regen. I'm really sorry about your experience. And so what should happen is not just that you're consulted and there's a ballot before the estate regeneration happens, but you get first dibs on going back to your estate when it's improved, and it should be obviously as quickly as possible. What I can do is take away your particular housing association, my deputy mayor's here, to find out what the issues with the delay and how soon you can be rehoused, because you're right, during the process of this regeneration, what you don't want is the inconvenience and the issues that you've raised. So let me take that away and look at what we can do. But the idea is you go back to a better home, a better estate, but obviously the inconvenience is really distressing to you and your family. So let me take that away. But don't go at the end my deputy will come over and speak to you. In relation to the gentleman there whose business has expanded fourfold, firstly, congratulations and thank you for the wealth you're creating and the families you're supporting. So look, the housing crisis is the biggest issue facing our city by a mile. And frankly speaking, successive governments and mayors haven't kept up with the supply of housing the demand requires. And that's led to the massive inflation in terms of homes to purchase and homes to rent. And frankly speaking, right to buy hasn't helped because the precious stock we have hasn't been replenished. Every 6 homes sold, only 1 is rebuilt. So the housing supply has dwindled over this past. There is some good news in relation to this area. So Haringey Council, the council are in, for the first time in a generation, is building council homes. We're building more homes at any time that are council homes than the 1930s. We're completing 10,000 more homes than the previous mayor, more completions than the 1930s, but we're a long way from supply meeting demand. And that's why I do welcome this government saying in this parliament they want to build 1.5 million homes. And there has been tough choices in relation to where these homes goes, and it has been infrastructure investment in London. But linked with that is the issue of those who are renting privately, the 20-somethings. There's 3 things that concern them. 1 is the amount of rent they're paying, 2 is lack of security of tenure, and 3 is quality of accommodation. On the last 2, the Renters' Right Bill going through Parliament will help. On the first one, the tribunal will help in relation to controlling the rents. So we need to make sure in the meantime they can afford to rent in London, and when they get into their 30s, they can afford to be homeowners. Let me just say, Charlene, I've got skin in the game. I've got 2 daughters aged 25 and 23. At some stage, I want them to leave home. And so there's a self-interest in sorting this out for me, so I get it in relation to the need for doing this.
And on
in relation to the service charges, so I'm really sorry for your experience. I mean, that's a common experience, by the way. If Andrew Buff was here, he's the chair, he's raised a number of times the issue of experience of leaseholders. And Tom Copley's done a lot of work in relation to this issue. Good news, we now have a government who's promising to abolish leaseholds to go to common hold. That will help you going forward. Your issue is the bill you've got going backwards. So the advice I'll give you is, firstly, please get legal advice. You can challenge L&Q through the courts, but also through the Ombudsman as well in relation to the service charge. And you should organise with your neighbours as well, together, because everyone's facing that same issue that you're facing. I've met Charlene over the last few months. People whose dream of being homeowners has turned into nightmares. And that's why it's really important this government's finally getting a grip on turning leaseholders into common hold. And in the meantime, please get legal advice. CAB, Law Centre, we help fund, but also the Ombudsman as well. You can go to the Ombudsman through your MP.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Best.
Thank you, Charlene, and thank you for the questions and everybody coming out this evening. I'm Assembly Member Best. I'm the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Group, and I wanted to turn first to the gentleman with the temporary accommodation problem. That sounds absolutely awful, and I know the Assembly is united in believing that we need more of a resident say in schemes like this, and I do think the Mayor will take that forward. That is absolutely unacceptable, and I hope that's solved for you. Turning to the lady who raised the leasehold the service charges on connected to leaseholds. At last week's budget meeting, the Conservatives put forward an amendment to have a leasehold advice centre, and some good news as well, that was cross-party supported by the entire Assembly. And I do hope the Mayor takes that on board and moves forward with that idea, because that is the sort of advice and support that leaseholders need, especially in the interim of waiting for legislative changes that are long overdue on that. And then just to turn to both questions, I think, which really hit on the affordability crisis of homes in London. The previous government gave the Mayor £9 billion towards affordable housing. In his 2021 to 2026 programme, there's only 12% of those homes that have been started. And it was funny to hear him, he still does this, he double counts his figures with Boris's when he talks about these record numbers. He's talking about the previous mayor's figures when he tries to talk about how he's trying to excuse his failure around this. the way we are on track at the moment for the 21-26 house building programme, we'll finish by 2060. Londoners cannot wait that long for affordable homes. And then if you look at what we've seen, we've talked tonight about the Mayor saying he'd have a Labour government with the wind in his sails. Well, we've already talked about transport, where you see your fares rising because a Labour government told him to do so. We've talked about policing, where you're losing 400 officers.
Assembly Member
because the
Best,
government,
we're going to keep
the
to
point
the
is
subject.
The point's getting there. The 400 police officers that have been lost because of the Labour government, now coming on to affordable housing, where he got £1 billion every year under a Conservative government, he got £100 million this year under a Labour government. That's why a Labour councillor here in Haringey has already left.
No, sorry, no. Assembly Member Best, you were doing really well, and then you moved on to rhetoric.
Thank you. You won't hear
That
from
is
me
not
again.
allowed on this stage at the moment, and I will continue to tell people off if they're not able to stick by those rules. Assembly Member Moema.
Thank you, Charlene, and thank you all for coming this evening. My name is Sam Moema, and I'm really proud to represent Hackney, Islington and Waltham Forest at City Hall, and I am the Labour Group spokesperson for housing and currently the chair of the Housing Committee. So, I mean, before I move on to the substantive question, I just want to say briefly that I'm not even sure that I would need both hands to count how many homes Boris Johnson started before he left office as the mayor. But onto the specific points that people who've attended this evening raised in your questions. We have a really important job to do as Assembly members, and both the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor know that we will hold them to account and we will raise difficult topics with them, including things like when homes are funded by the Affordable Homes Programme. The issues that you have raised this evening around service charges and leaseholders is absolutely central. Constituencies like mine have a perfect storm of being now very, very high value land, and actually people's wages haven't kept up with the cost of housing. That's the fundamental problem that we have. So you'll be pleased to know that the Assembly's Housing Committee is in the process of completing some work around leasehold and the impacts of that particular tenure for Londoners. Over a third of the leasehold homes in this country, in England, are in London, and so clearly action needs to be taken in order to make sure that people's homes are stable, that their service charges reflect a reality of what they're actually receiving, and that there is some redress through the courts or through support from the Mayor, additional support to what's already being provided. And my colleague Emma here is right, that we as the Labour Group did support that measure because we believe that even though we do have different political colours, we all face the same problems representing Londoners. Very briefly, Charlene, if that's okay.
Is it definitely an answer to a question?
Yes, to this gentleman
here.
here.
That's great.
I promise it is an answer. To this gentleman here about the crisis that London faces, and not just your employees, but you as a potential employer, because what we see potentially is London being hollowed out. And so what we know that in Haringey, but in other places, there are fewer and fewer children, and so schools are being affected. That is a direct consequence of what you're seeing with your employees not being able to afford to stay here and start families. And so one of the things that I'm really pleased to see the Mayor doing is to have made that commitment to deliver 40,000 new social homes to alleviate pressure on councils like Haringey so that people can move into the private rented sector, have some stability and start those families. And I know here in this borough, they've got a commitment of building 3,000 homes by 2031. That's going to go a really long way to really making sure that people can stay here, put down roots, put their children into the local schools and keep this amazing borough and this amazing city going.
Okay, thank you, Assembly Member Moema. Okay, I'm going to take a question online. Why is accessible housing not a priority in your new London growth plan? How are you going to make sure deaf and disabled Londoners are meaningfully involved in the development of the new London plan and the Mayor's housing strategy? Too many disabled people are trapped in unsuitable homes that they cannot afford. Mr. Mayor.
So the London growth plan isn't the spatial plan for housing, that's the London plan, and we're working on a new London plan. And so just to reassure the online questioner, that will be dealt with in the London plan. The London growth plan is about how over the next 10 years we increase the size of our economy to the tune of £100 billion, which will mean that the average Londoner is £11,000 better off, and the Treasury gets back more money to invest in public services. The question in relation to involving deaf and disabled Londoners, my Deputy Mayor for Communities and Social Justice is here. We've done a huge amount of work to involve those. By the way, there is also an underserved community, the phrase you used in the back row. Deaf and disabled Londoners are underserved, and we've got to make sure they're better served and include them in the design and concept stage. And so Debbie's doing lots of work to go out and about to meet these communities, but also we've set up a group in City Hall to make sure in all the policies we do, from transport to housing to environment, we involve deaf and disabled Londoners. It's crucial.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Garbett, you had raised your hand.
I just wanted to quickly come in on estate regeneration and the story that you were saying about your experience, because currently there's 133 estates across London up for demolition, and I want to make sure that the voices of those residents are really heard in those plans, and it's not just a kind of developer progress that's the priority, that is absolutely the experience of those residents, because across the city, I'm hearing from residents who are left in damp and mouldy homes while they're waiting for them to be kind of demolished and changed. They're left in kind of limbo. They said they're being left to rot. And I just think your story is really powerful when you not knowing what's happening on your estate. So I've been working with an organisation called Just Space, and we've met with the Deputy Mayor to put forward a criticism of the best practice guidance for estate regeneration to make sure that things like this don't happen to residents and that their stories are and their homes are prioritised.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank you. Just touching on the issue of disabled access to housing. We did recently at one of our meetings of the Assembly pass a motion unanimously asking for the Mayor to appoint a disability champion for the whole of London, which is something which is desperately needed. We understand from the Mayor that he thinks that this is something which can be encompassed within his Deputy Mayor's for Communities role. However, disabled Londoners are telling us loud and clear, particularly from the charity Inclusion London, that they are not being well served by that particular model. So I do very much hope that the Mayor will take on board the call from the Assembly, will take on board the call from disabled Londoners to appoint a disabled champion so that there is somebody with lived experience of disability who is fighting their corner at City Hall day in, day out and working to make their lives better.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now out of time for housing. Other questions, if we have time at the end, we will be able to take other questions on the subjects that I've not had time to come to as yet. But we're now going to move on to the economy. So I'm going to take two questions from the audience. Little gentleman there that's waving at me. You've waved for a very long time, so I will let you ask your question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Mayor and members of the Assembly, welcome to Haringey. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy and are so important to the people here in Haringey. What are you doing to support our small businesses? Thank you.
Support small businesses. Thank you very much. Gentleman here, blue shirt, plaid jacket. Paddle number 6. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spot on with the jacket. My name's Matthew. I'm a councillor up in Harrow, and as a young person, London is becoming more and more expensive every single day. We've got record rates of pubs and clubs closing, fares are going up by 4.6%, fines are up, charges are up, rents are up. The transport now is the most expensive in London, and how can you expect people to go and contribute to London's economy when you've upped council tax by 75%? So my question is, why are you making London so unaffordable for young people like me to have a future? Will you give us our money back that you've taken by upping your council tax precept?
Okay, and we have a question from online which says, Green Lanes is so important to Haringey. How are you supporting our local high streets and making sure they recover from all the issues that they have faced recently? So, the three questions. Supporting small businesses, and also, why are you making London so unaffordable? Can you give some of our council tax back? And the third question was about supporting local high streets.
Okay, can I thank all three for those questions? Firstly, to the small business owner in the People's Republic of Haringey. Firstly, thank you for what you do. I used to help run a sort of medium-sized business, and I know what it's like. You go to bed at night being stressed about the overdraft, overheads, and so forth. It's a challenge, right? but you create the wealth and prosperity, but also make the high street vibrant. And we need more small businesses doing well and shops doing well. So we work closely with great councils like Haringey to support the vibrancy of high streets. In the London Growth Plan that I mentioned earlier that we published last week, London councils like Haringey had big input, and because of their advice and expertise, we've set aside a pot of money of more than £10 million to invest in high streets like Green Lanes, one mentioned, and your high street, to make sure we support you to get more footfall, which means more customers for you, but also to lobby the government around things like business rates, which you know the challenges you face with business rates, rent, and all the other issues that you face. So we are determined to make sure we support businesses like you. We're also looking at how we can support those high streets with our empty shops that are an eyesore, but also can often end up being shops that are less attractive to the shop next door. So we're trying to coordinate this with councils across London. In the past few years, we've set up creative enterprise zones. We've created policies to support markets, and we're going to carry on doing that going forward because, 99% of businesses in London, 99% are small businesses, and it's really important we support you because, as you said, you are the lifeline of our economy. And on Green Lanes, we're working with Haringey on this issue. There's a big issue in relation to small independent retailers. Often these small independent retailers support not just one family, but 2 or 3 families. These aren't chains that come in where the profits go overseas and often are avoided in paying tax. These are small businesses that pay taxes and so forth. So we are trying to support the Green Lanes economy, particularly the food and cuisine, hospitality is really important. And to my good friend, the Tory from Harrow, the 2 boroughs in London, with the cheapest council tax, are Labour Wandsworth and Labour Westminster. What's it like in Conservative Harrow? What's it like in Conservative Harrow? And the idea that anybody that chaired Liz Truss's mini budget,
Hello. Thank you so much. But that is what I am here for. So I really don't need you to heckle. That is not what this is about. When I want the mayor to get to the question, I will make him get to answering the question.
Well, the best way to respond to the consequences of Liz Truss's mini budget, which are the cost of living going up, interest rates going up, mortgages going up, rents going up, is to do what people did across the country: vote Labour.
Okay.
And what that's led to is, in the last 7 months alone, we've had record investment in TfL, so our capital budgets increase. So we'll have better trains, more reliable, really important. Frozen bus fares and tram fares. What it's led to is more investment in affordable housing to make housing affordable to Londoners. What it's led to...
do it again, and I am going to have to tell you off. Yeah, he is answering a question, and if I feel he's not answering the question properly, I will interject. You heckle again, and I will have to tell you off. And if you continue to do it again, I will get you removed. It's gone so smoothly so far, but I'm not going to have that behaviour.
And the last thing,
I will ask you to answer the rest of it very quickly. Other people have got to speak.
The last thing, because I'm upsetting him, God forbid. The last thing is, look, we've done something that has never been done before to help people with the cost of living. And the Tories voted against this. Every child in a state primary school receives, guess what? A free, nutritious hot meal.
Okay, Assembly Member Giorgio.
Thank you, Charlene, and it's good to be with the second best team in North London this evening. So, look, the question was, I mean, look, I'd say to the Mayor, if he's the Tory from Harrow, you're the Champagne Socialist from Wandsworth, mate, so I wouldn't go on too much about that.
Assembly Member Giorgio, you have not started well. Just answer the question.
I've lived my life mostly that way, Charlene, I'm afraid. So what we've seen from the Mayor has already been identified, a 75% increase in his council tax.
Assembly Member Giorgio, the rest of what you say had better be acceptable. I'm afraid
I'm
not going to take it off. No. There is no. I'm sorry. Again, I will not be interrupted. You may not like the fact that I'm in charge here. I am. So if I ask you to pipe down, you pipe down and answer the question. Thank you very much.
So Charlene,
please do
it was
not
about,
argue
it was
with
about
me.
75% council tax
No,
increase. That
so
was the
just
question.
continue what you're doing. But the start of what you said, I did not agree with. So what I'm saying to you is no rhetoric. There is no banter in that way. This isn't about you and the mayor. It's about you answering questions that people have asked you. So get to answering the question, please.
Right, 75% increase in the mayor's council tax precept. His mates in government have increased national insurance, which are destroying businesses in London, destroying jobs in London, destroying growth in London, all of which the mayor has supported. In addition to that, cutting winter fuel allowance, which is stopping elderly people from heating their homes, choosing between heating and eating, and not spending money in London's economy. London's nightlife has been destroyed. When I was growing up in London, you'd go out, have a dance, have a drink, maybe meet someone that you like, and you quite frankly, you can't really do that anymore. You know, more taxes, with the greatest respect, from the Mayor of London and from this Labour government, delivering worse crime results, poorer transport, next to no housing. He's put his hands in his pockets and he's delivered you nothing, London.
Assembly Member Giorgio, are you going to answer the other two questions, or were you just making a speech?
I still can if you'd like me to.
Well, I mean, only if you're going to answer the questions. There were two other questions that were asked.
I've addressed the council tax question, and once again, I refer to the gentleman here, which answered his question on small businesses in London, and which are suffering, once again, thanks to the national insurance increase, which the mayor supported. Thank you,
Thank you very much. We got there in the end. Assembly Member Hirani.
Thank you. I'll try and bring the tone to a respectable level again, but the council tax issue.
If we could not be childish, that would be great.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
like
you,
I'm stood in front of my kid's primary school. I'm not. So stop. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm going to address the council tax issue because I think it's an issue no matter where you live in London. Most councils across London, nearly all councils this year, are increasing their council tax, and part of that is because of what we've seen in terms of local government funding over the last 14 to 15 years. And increasingly, local councils have had their local base budgets cut by government, which has meant actually the only choice that they really have is to increase council tax. That's why even in areas like Harrow, council taxpayers this year will be paying up to £250 more, and the mayor's precept is going up by a few pounds a year. I think it's slightly hypocritical to be criticising that few pounds a year if you're increasing it by about up to £250 a year, but that's a choice that local councils have. Listen, council tax is regressive. We do need to see reform in the council tax system so that we can bring local government funding to a fairer level, and that includes how businesses pay their business rates as well.
Thank you. And do you want to refer to the Green Lanes question? Okay, that's all you want to do. Okay, so we could do to Assembly Member Clark.
Thank you for that. I think Assembly Member Hirani covered council tax well, so I'm just going to move on to business rates. And I think one thing that's really good to see is the government and the mayor taking the transformation of business rates seriously, because our high streets, people in London across our city identify with their high streets as where they live. It's the heartbeat of their communities, and it's how they identify a lot of the times. And the thing is, with business rates, the way they're formulated comes from a time when the majority of the shopping was done on the high street. That's now changed. As online shopping has increased, the footfall of our shops has fallen, and it's quite right to be looking at that afresh and to be saying, actually, these online giants should be paying more of their share of tax, and the high street businesses and our small businesses need to see that burden relieved. Thank you. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Assembly Member Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come back in. I'll to avoid.
As long as you're not giving a speech.
Well, that's fine. For avoidance of any doubt, I'll make it clear at the beginning which question it is in particular that I'm going to be answering. It's the question about small businesses. I run my own small business. I know how difficult it is, and I have lots of friends and colleagues who do the same and are in a similar situation. I want to thank you for being a risk taker, for going out there to trying to generate some economic activity without which we can't fund anything else that we do. Small businesses, it gets said as a cliche, the lifeblood of the economy. It's not a cliche, it's absolutely 100% true. And the small businesses of today become the medium-sized and the large businesses of tomorrow. So we do need to do whatever we can to try and help the economy grow and help small businesses grow in particular. Now, I welcome the ambitions set out in the London Growth Plan. Having read much of the documentation, however, the rest of it seems to be largely sort of technocratic word salad rather than actually a clear plan for delivery. But even putting that to one side, what you can't ignore is the overall impact of what the national government is doing. And the impact of the national insurance hike on small businesses in particular, on retail, on hospitality, on part-time workers, low-paid workers, people trying to enter the workforce for the first time, really, really struggling. Now, when Amy LeMay was Night Tsar in London, she achieved nothing for London's nightlife. Sacha Lord in Manchester is a much more kind of wise and sage source of advice. He knows that Rachel from the council's budget is a disaster. It's about time the rest of the Labour Party grew up and learnt the same.
We're going to move on to Assembly Member Susan Hall.
Thank you. I'm just going to cover high streets and small businesses. I have run a small business on a high street for over 3 decades. Anybody that thinks running a small business is easy wants to just try it. And it's particularly difficult at the moment. And if you want to make sure that high streets are viable, you need to make sure that they're safe. People won't go to areas if they don't feel safe. And that goes back to the whole policing thing, which I won't go into, but it is absolutely vital that they are safe. My colleague did mention the national insurance hike. That will affect small businesses so badly when they have to find that extra bit of money for the members of staff. And you need your staff. Your staff are vital. But that, added to the new employment laws being put in by this government, will absolutely cripple very small businesses, particularly those that are on the high street. Now, I'm speaking as somebody that has actually run a business. So many people think that they can comment on it, and they've never run a business, but it's very difficult. But the one thing we must make sure in our high streets is that they are safe. We need more police officers on our streets. Thanks,
Okay,
Shirley.
thank you. Assembly Member McCartney.
Thank you. My name's Joanne McCartney and I'm the London Assembly Member for Enfield and Haringey. Thank you. Can I just want to firstly say, with regards to the question about council tax, I think it's extremely hypocritical that we've had some members on this panel this evening saying the Mayor should put his money where his mouth is and pay for extra police officers. Where do you think that money comes from? It comes from council tax, and the majority of the Mayor's share of council tax goes to funding the police. You can't have it both ways. Secondly, I'd like just to talk a little bit about the Green Lanes question. The Economy Committee recently visited Greens Lanes and walked down the Wood Green part with the councillor leader. And it was really good to see the funding from the Mayor that's gone into this part of London. Nearly £2 million into connecting Wood Green, planting, greening the High Street, putting money into Rising Green Youth Hub in Leamington Avenue, a massive investment into our young people right in the heart of Wood Green, trying to give them opportunities and steering them away from a life of crime. Funding the development of the Green Rooms Hotel, just here opposite the tube station at Wood Green, an arts-led social enterprise, and funding Blue House Yard, a start-up, you may have seen it just there, again at Wood Green, providing meanwhile space and places where entrepreneurs can start new businesses. And of course, one thing I'm really pleased about is that in 2027, Haringey has been awarded the status of the London Borough of Culture. So the entire borough is going to get £1 million investment to really enliven our community with an array of cultural events throughout that year. And it's something I'm really looking to, real investment in our communities.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Small Edwards.
Thank you very much, Charlene, and good evening, everyone. My name is James Small-Edwards, and I am a Labour London Assembly member representing Kensington and Chelsea, Hammersmith and Fulham, and Westminster. And I just want to speak directly about the point around council tax. There are 3 boroughs, as I've just articulated, in my constituency. 2 of them are run by the Labour Party, 1 of them by the Conservative Party, and it is Conservative Kensington and Chelsea which has the highest council tax. Just last night, Labour Westminster approved its budget, and its council tax share was half that of Kensington and Chelsea. So to me, it's clear that it's Labour councils in London that are delivering better services for lower taxes. When it comes to the Mayor's precept of council tax and what this is being spent on, as he said, it's being spent on a free school lunch, a hot, nutritious lunch every single day for every single child in every single primary school in London. And I can't see a better way to spend taxpayers' money than that. What the audience might not be aware of is that last week the government began to roll out its free breakfast clubs. And this is part of a manifesto pledge to roll out free breakfast clubs in every primary school in England this Parliament. 75 of those schools in that first tranche are in London. And what that means when this scheme is rolled out fully is that in London, every single primary school child will get a free nutritious lunch and a free breakfast. And we know from studies that this will increase their aptitude in maths, in writing.
Are you relating this to council tax?
Oh, I was wondering. I was just wondering.
Because I'm very confused as to where this answer is going. I understand
Yes.
about the council tax being paid for free school lunches at schools. I'm very confused as to how breakfast
Well,
relates
he's
to that.
doing a political speech, Charlene,
No,
which is
I
what you...
know, which is why I'm looking at him and trying to figure out what it is.
Well, I'm linking the council tax point to the Mayor's free school lunches and what that means for
Yeah,
Londoners.
but you've done that. So are you going to move on to one of the other questions?
I mean, I'm happy to leave it there, but I think the point is that there's free school lunches and free school meals and breakfast being delivered for every single Londoner. That's what we're achieving with a Labour government and a Labour Mayor working together.
You did already make that point. OK, we are moving out of talking about the economy because we're out of time for that. So the remaining time, we're going to take questions on topics we haven't covered so far. These could cover culture, health or education as examples. I will take the lady in the green jacket that's just there at the front. Thank you very much, with the blonde hair.
Hello, I'm Judith. I just want to say we've got a lot to celebrate in Haringey. I'm a member of the Haringey Multi-Faith Forum from the Jewish community and working very closely with Bibi Khan, who is the first woman president of the White Man Mosque. And I just want to wish anyone who's celebrating Ramadan tonight, Ramadan Mubarak. We are living...
We have to get to the question.
I'm getting there. We're living in increasingly uncertain and unsettling times. So my question to you is, how will you commit to supporting communities who are facing increasing levels of hate? And the effect of this is enormous on communities' mental health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, the lady in the grey jumper and white shirt. That will be paddle number 2, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a black serving police officer. My question is in relation to culture and what you're doing to protect black officers in the Met. Recently, Zoe Garbett supported me as I was the officer who they accused of being racist against another black officer. I'm currently studying a PhD in the experience of black police officers. I'm also a survivor of domestic abuse from a higher white-ranking officer. When I was investigated for his malicious allegations, I was restricted for about 3 years. I was not allowed to deal with the public. I wasn't allowed to speak to anybody. I was denied promotion. This man is under investigation currently for sexual violence, financial control, and various other things, and he's still serving. What are you? This is. I am not the only person this is happening to of colour. What are you doing to protect officers of colour?
Okay,
we are going to lose them.
So, thank you very much, but we do have to stick to just the question, if you understand. Okay, and we'll take one from the iPad. My child is currently in school and are thinking about their future. What is it that you're doing to support young people to get into good jobs that pay well? So those 3 questions. How to commit to helping communities deal with hate crimes. How are you going to protect black officers who are serving in the Met Police? And also helping young people to get into good jobs that pay well.
Well, can I begin with the first question and deal with them in order? So firstly, look, thank you for what you said about Ramadan. I've been fasting all day. I was 6'4" when Ramadan began. And it's funny what it does to you. And I think allyship is the key here. The joy of London is our diversity we see as a strength, not a weakness. That allyship you refer to is so important. I know the massive increase in anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish hatred since the awful attack by Hamas in Israel. And we also know the massive increase in anti-Muslim hatred and Islamophobia in the preceding months following. And we also know, black Londoners suffer racism. Those from the LGBT+ community suffer homophobia. So the allyship is really important. We don't want to be tolerated being different. We want to be respected, embraced and celebrated. And so it is important not to take it for granted. In Harringay, with
but
great
the question was
how.
You're going into rhetoric at the start of that. She just wants to know how we're going to protect them.
Allyship is the answer, and allyship is really important. And it goes to mental health as well. I've talked about mental ill health because it's important to show allyship. We in City Hall are invested in Thrive London and also the Good Thinking app. There's a huge stigma, particularly in minority communities, around mental ill health. That's why talking about it makes a big difference. And actually, the princes have been great talking about it, William and Harry, which has given others a confidence to talk about mental ill health. And that goes the same with mental ill health as it does with minority communities. In relation to the second question, firstly, thank you for speaking up. I know how difficult it is to talk about discrimination you suffer as a black person, as a police officer who is still serving. And you're right, it does impact recruitment, it does impact retention, it impacts progression as well, right? Because it's really important we make progress in those areas. That goes to the core, one of Dame Louise Case's recommendations, if we're going to make the police service anti-racist. I don't know about your individual case. I can ask the Deputy Mayor to speak to you. One of the things I would recommend you to do if you've not done is join the Met Black Police Association. Great, fantastic. Because that allyship.
So I can't do heckling. I can't. No. I do understand that. But when it comes to, I know it's not criticising. I do understand that. But we've only got about 10 minutes left. So
what I'll do, Charlotte, with your permission, is I'll make sure one of my colleagues speaks to the brave woman about seeing what we can do offline. Because I can't do it in a public space for obvious reasons. And the third question is really important online, Charlene, as well. In relation to good jobs, how do we make sure our young people get the training for the good jobs that have been created? And it goes partly to the London Growth Plan. We want to set up an inclusive talent strategy. So we're creating these great jobs in London, but Londoners will not unreasonably say, well, what about me? These jobs are being created, but I'm not getting access to these jobs. So we're going to train up Londoners to have these jobs. The good news, since we took over the adult education budget in 2019, we've given training to 1 million Londoners. And the great news is 50% of those who receive training, their salary's gone up by 10%. Okay. So good training makes a big difference. We want Londoners to get the great jobs being created, well-paid, high-skilled jobs.
Okay, thank you very much. Assembly Member Best.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to come first to the police officer over here and thank you for being so brave to stand up and share that story. I really appreciate it. Of course, there's a lot of things that we could talk about within the culture of the Met, and I think earlier this evening we obviously had the discussion about why the vetting decision is so disappointing, obviously leading to stories like yours. But I think what I wanted to speak about in relation to this was that you were talking about people leaving, and this comes to the fact that we are now at a point where their trust and confidence in the police is the lowest ever, and it keeps dipping. Then you see that we have a programme like the Police Cadets, and that's going to be cut across London, and that is actually one of the most diverse routes into in the police force. It shows kids that it's a great career, but it also introduces kids to the police in a positive way. And actually, if you go to any police cadet force, you'll see that they're the most diverse group of young children, and this is a service that's being cut. So we did ask the Mayor in our budget to provide that service and make sure no young child loses out. That wasn't agreed, but I do hope that he reflects on that decision still. And I want to come as well to the question, if I can quickly, on how to get a good job in London. And unfortunately, this does come back to what we've been talking about the national insurance increase, because it's going to be those graduate jobs that are the first things to go. Those are going to be the opportunities we lose here in London. And it's everything we've been talking about here tonight. If this isn't an affordable city, if transport isn't good, if nightlife isn't good, then businesses aren't going to do business here. And we need to fix all those other problems to make sure that there is the opportunities for young people to take advantage of.
All right, thank you very much. And Assembly Member Moema.
Thank you. If I could just link your question, the police officer at the back, and this woman who asked a question at the very beginning about the kidnap, rape and murder of Sarah Everard. I'm also a member of the Police and Crime Committee, and so I read the Casey review cover to cover, and everything that you have described, institutional racism and misogyny and homophobia, were the three of the key findings of that report, and very specific cases and examples like the one that you have given about the impact on your career. I think they might have a long way to go before they can give officers like you who, in good faith, come to the service to serve Londoners. But we know that black officers, in comparison to their white counterparts, are much more likely to go down a disciplinary route. Now, I know that the Deputy Mayor is working really, really closely with MOPAC and with the police to try and address that, but it is our job as Assembly members to make sure that the Commissioner and MOPAC are held to account on that. And I do not want to sound trite, but I can only give you my heartfelt thoughts, and I completely understand how you feel when you kind of hit that barrier because of something imperceptible, but you know that it's about your race. And on the point of that this woman raised as well, I forgot your name, I'm sorry, but those two issues about the institutional racism of the Met, intrinsically linked. So you as a serving police officer are suffering exactly the same thing that black Londoners face day to day in greater numbers than their white counterparts. And one good thing is that, from my perspective, I'll be very quick, I promise, is that the new commissioner has worked seemingly very, very genuinely and openly to actually try and address some of that. Now, I know that it doesn't necessarily apply in every single case, but where there are issues ongoing, I would really encourage you to speak to the Deputy Mayor, speak to Assembly members, and see if we can really just understand what is continuing to happen despite promises to us as Assembly members.
Thank you very much. Assembly Member Georgiou.
Thank you very much, Charlene. So to the lady that raised the question about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, quite frankly, I appreciate what the Mayor has said, but I don't think allyship is enough. For example, in the immediate aftermath of the terrorist attacks on October 7th, anti-Semitic hate crime in London increased by 286%. So therefore, that is not an allyship issue, that is a policing issue. And it breaks my heart on a regular basis in my part of North London, where I'm surrounded by Jewish friends, families and colleagues, where they feel they cannot go into central London on the weekends. And that is a massive, massive problem. It is not an allyship issue, it is a policing issue. And that's not me saying that I don't think the Mayor's heart is in the right place on this, or the head of the Met. I think just more needs to be done to work with the Board of Jewish Deputies and understand how Jewish Londoners feel and how we tackle this issue. Thank you
very much. Assembly Member Clark.
Thank you. I'm just going to come in on the same issue. And first of all, Judith, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and I want to thank the work of the London Jewish Forum. I see Andrew Gilbert next to you. I think as politicians, we all bear a responsibility to be engaged with the communities we serve, and that's faith communities, that's communities of people who've come from across the world to our great city. The work of multi-faith forums in my constituency, both in Barnet and Camden, is exceptional. And I know that both during the pandemic, at the early stage of the pandemic, and in the aftermath of the 7th of October, the very first people to get programs into place and to recognize how severe this issues were going to be were the multi-faith community. So I just wanted to add my thanks, and I'm sure the thanks of all of us, to the work that you're doing and to the multi-faith forums across our city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Assembly Member Russell.
Very briefly, I just wanted to thank you for speaking out so bravely. The way that you spoke about not being allowed to speak to the public and that difference in terms of the way that you were treated is absolutely shocking. And I think, also having been on the Police and Crime Committee when the Casey review came out, and like Assembly Member Moema, having read it cover to cover, the thing that I think is still hanging in the air is that the Met Commissioner has still not accepted institutional racism as a label, and that is something that your case quite clearly shows this is something that still needs to be done. So thank you for raising it. I just wanted to also speak to the person who raised working in multi-faith community work, because that work is so important, and particularly as our world seems to be turning upside down, that community work, holding us together, stopping division and making us all support each other and make each other feel safe could not be more important as we watch more and more extraordinary things on our television. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's all we've got time for tonight. We're at an end. Thank you so much for attending, and a huge thank you to everybody that asked a question. Thank you so much for participating. Do not forget to keep an eye on the website www.london.gov.uk for the details of the next People's Question Time. If your question was not answered, you can email the question to mayor@london.gov.uk. You receive a response within 20 working days. Don't forget to complete, just give me like 2 more seconds and I'll be done. Remember to complete an online feedback form via the link displayed on the screen. The QR code is also available on posters around the room. I'm off for a lie down. Have a safe journey home. Bye-bye.